Chapter 342. Yao Moan's frightening aura swept over like a hurricane. Azure Dragon's hand that was holding the sword couldn't help but tremble. For some reason, when faced with Yao Moan's crimson eyes, Azure Dragon really couldn't bring himself to attack. Azure Dragon, kill everyone here. Otherwise, they'll definitely go to G Province to ask for reinforcements. Yao Sulwan saw that Azure Dragon was wavering and immediately warned. Release everyone here. This consort will go back with you to see His Majesty. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, His Majesty would never believe that the woman he dotes on the most isn't an idiot. Azure Dragon, this consort will give you a chance now. Once this consort dies, do you believe that His Majesty will go crazy? Yao Moan's cold voice seemed to have a bewitching power. Azure Dragon hesitated for a moment, then actually didn't try to harm Lu Sha. In order to personally see Yao Moan's tragic end, Yao Sulwan fearlessly agreed to return to Chu Palace with Azure Dragon. Yao Moan only let go of the hairpin after walking for an hour. She believed that Tingyu had already sent Lu Sha and Yao Tu to a safe place within this hour. The moment Yao Moan let go of the hairpin, Azure Dragon suddenly attacked and Yao Moan fainted. In Ji Province's guest house, Yi Junqing accepted the Longjing tea Huan Kaier had made and barely managed to take a sip. It was tasteless. Right at this time, Binlei suddenly ran in from outside. Prince, it's Mang Yuan's secret letter. As Binlei spoke, he handed the letter to Yi Junqing and took the teacup that Yi Junqing impatiently handed over. At the side, Huan Kaier clearly didn't know what was good for her and walked forward to read the letter in Yi Junqing's hands. This prince still has official business to attend to. If Miss Huan doesn't have any urgent matters, why don't you go back and rest? Yi Junqing deliberately put away the letter and looked towards Huan Kaier. Since Prince has matters to attend to, then Kaier won't disturb you any further. Kaier will go to the kitchen to prepare dinner for Prince. Huan Kaier backed away awkwardly and walked out of the main hall. Once Huan Kaier was far away, Yi Junqing finally opened the letter. However, when he saw the contents, his face paled and he shot out like an arrow released from a bow. Your Highness, what happened? Binlei hadn't expected that Yi Junqing would have such a big reaction. He immediately rushed out of the main hall, but there was already no trace of Yi Junqing. In the Mongyuan Inn, Tingyu wept bitterly as she bandaged Lu Sha's wounds. I'm sorry. These were the first words that came out of Lu Sha's mouth ever since he returned from Yao Tu's residence. As a hidden guard, it was already a dereliction of duty that he wasn't able to protect his master. If it wasn't for Yao Moan risking her life to keep him alive, he would definitely commit suicide to atone for his sins. However, his master had expended so much effort to keep him alive. If he were to die just like this, who would he be able to face? It's not your fault. It's all that bastard Yao Sulwan. She was the one who caused her ladyship to be captured. But what should we do now? Tingyu was sobbing so hard that her voice could not be heard. Her tears fell onto the wound that was wrapped in white cloth. At that moment, Yao Tu, who was unconscious on the other bed, finally woke up. Third Miss? Where is Third Miss? Yao Tu struggled to get up, his turbid eyes staring straight at Tingyu. Right at this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open and Yi Junqing rushed in. He was dressed in azure robes and his handsome face was as pale as a sheet. What exactly happened? How could Moan have been kidnapped? Who did it? Yi Junqing's icy voice was filled with extreme anger as he walked over to Lu Sha's bed. Prince, you've finally come. It was Yao Sulwan and Azure Dragon. They were the ones who kidnapped her ladyship. Azure Dragon already knows that her ladyship was pretending to be stupid. He's definitely taken her ladyship back to the Chu Palace right now. Prince, you have to save my family's ladyship. The moment Tingyu saw Yi Junqing, she immediately knelt to the ground and begged. Lu Sha was incompetent and couldn't protect Master. Prince, please punish me. On the bed, Lu Sha couldn't face Yi Junqing anymore and begged for forgiveness. Lu Sha's legs tendons have already been cut by Azure Dragon. By the time we arrived, Azure Dragon had already set up an ambush. Prince, saving her ladyship is more important. Tingyu pleaded for Lu Sha. It's all this old servant's fault. I actually believe that Second Miss was truly remorseful. This old servant has wronged Third Mississippi. If something happens to third miss, this old servant won't be able to make up for it even if I die 10,000 times. Yao Tu finally understood that he had made a huge mistake. Tingyu, take good care of Lu Sha and Yao Tuesday. This prince will go and kidnap Yao Moen right now. Yi Junqing couldn't wait to hear the whole story. Right now, he just wanted to see Yao Moen safe and sound. Just as Yi Junqing was about to rush out of the room, he was blocked by Bin Lei and wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. Prince, you can't leave at a time like this. Ji province might start fighting at any moment. If you leave, who's going to manage the situation? Bin Lei heard everything clearly from outside and immediately blocked Yi Junqing's way. Scram! Yi Junqing's eyes were bloodshot as he punched Bin Lei's chest. Prince, we'll go and save Master. Prince, you absolutely can't leave Ji province. If anything happens to you, it would be a waste of Master's efforts. Seeing that Bin Lei was coughing up blood, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning immediately knelt in front of Yi Junqing and consoled him. Everything Yao Moen has done for this prince knows better than any of you. She only wanted this prince to succeed. But if this country can't be shared with her, then what's the point of this prince guarding it alone? Revenge is important, but what's more important is to cherish those in front of me. This prince has already lost Ma Xin. If something happens to Moen, this prince will have nothing left to live for. Yi Junqing's low voice was steady and mournful. Every word he said was like a cuckoo crying blood, causing those who heard it to cry. At this moment, everyone fell silent. Bin Lei choked, but he still couldn't force back his tears. Prince, don't worry. Bin Lei will definitely guard Ji province and respectfully welcome Prince and Master's return. Bin Lei choked with sobs and retreated to the side. This subordinate is willing to stand with Prince and will definitely rescue Master. Wind, rain, thunder, and lightning also stood up and didn't obstruct them anymore. As he watched Yi Junqing and wind, rain, thunder, and lightning's figures disappear from his line of sight, Bin Lei's eyes became misty. Prince finally admitted that he had Yao Moen in his heart. So heavens, you can't joke around this time. After chasing for more than 10 days, Yi Junqing and wind, rain, thunder, and lightning had been moving non-stop, but they were still a step too late. By the time they reached the capital of Chu, Yao Moen had already been brought into the imperial palace by Azure Dragon. Yi Junqing had originally wanted to charge in, but he was stopped by Yin Shui, who had arrived just in time. Prince, you absolutely cannot act rashly. There are Master's spies in the palace, so why don't you let Yin Shui scout first and make a move after understanding the situation? That way, we can be absolutely safe, suggested Yin Shui calmly. Yin Shui is right. If we charge in rashly, it's very likely that we'll fall into Yi Hongyi's ambush. Feng Lin also felt that Yin Shui's words were reasonable. That's fine. Then you have to be careful. Yi Junqing forced himself to remain calm and nodded in agreement. All of you protect Prince well. After Yin Shui gave her instructions, she leaped out of the inn. Inside Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moen stroked the familiar table and chair, her clear eyes flickering with an indistinguishable light. She really hadn't expected to return so early. She hadn't even finished preparing yet. So what should she do? Yao Moen, you've caused Bin Gong so much suffering. When Yao Sulwan saw Yao Moen's content expression, she clenched her teeth in anger. Second older sister has already said this several hundred times on the way here. Can't you say something else? Yao Moen glanced at Yao Sulwan, then turned to sit on the chaise longue. Without Fluffy and Jewel, this chaise longue seemed much larger. You're about to die yet you're still so stubborn. You probably never even dreamed that you'd fall into Bin Gong's hands, right? Yao Sulwan looked towards Yao Moen with a cold smile. She suddenly felt a bit impatient to see Yi Hongyi's shocked expression and Yao Moen's miserable death. Chapter 343. Who's the one being stubborn now? How could second older sister's circumstances be any better than Moen's? Don't forget, second older sister is currently locked up in Guan Osprey Palace with Moen. Yao Moen had always felt that hatred would make people have extraordinary rationality, but Yao Sulwan's rationality had been eaten by a dog. How could that be the same? This consort came back willingly to prove everything to His Majesty. As long as His Majesty knows that you're not an idiot, he'll definitely know that this consort was wrongly accused back then. Yao Sulwan shouted hoarsely as her eyes exploded. Moan, truly pitiful second older sister. Could it be that you still don't understand that Yi Hongyi can't tolerate you not because of Moan's existence, but because you know too much? Of course, even if you weren't willing, Azure Dragon would still forcefully bring you back. Yao Moan shrugged as she spoke the truth. It's different this time. This consort promises His Majesty to keep this a secret. Yao Moan's words had hit the nail on the head. If she hadn't run into Azure Dragon when she was begging, none of this would have happened. Although she was eager to take revenge, she had never thought of paying with her life. Only a dead person would keep a secret. Yao Moan's lips curved into a cold smile when she saw Yao Sulwan's pale face. Then she closed her eyes. She needed to think. In the Imperial study, Azure Dragon reported everything that had happened to Yi Hongyi. Your Majesty, this subordinate isn't lying. Her Majesty truly isn't an idiot. In order to save Yao Tu, Her Majesty even used a silver hairpin to press against her own neck. Azure Dragon enunciated each word firmly. Yao Moan really isn't a simple person to have this kind of courage and boldness. A feminine voice rang out. Before Yi Hongyi could say anything, the woman sitting next to him spoke up. Perhaps this was just Wanner's reaction in a moment of desperation. It doesn't prove anything. Yi Hongyi refuted as he looked towards the woman next to him. If it weren't for the fact that Yao Moan's aura at the time was enough to intimidate the Azure Dragon Guard, Yao Tu, Ting Yu, and that secret guard called Lu Sha would have already been killed. Yao Moan's actions aren't strange at all. What's strange is that just a few words from her were enough to make the Azure Dragon Guard give up on silencing them. The woman's voice was extremely sweet, so sweet that even the Azure Dragon Guard felt his bones soften. Looking towards the source of the voice, Azure Dragon could not help but sigh. Meiji, one of the 3 vice-military officers of the Iron Blood Army, was actually so flirtatious, as though she was a fox that had become a spirit. With just a glance, she could hook a person's soul. That was a charming and enchanting face. She had a delicate face, a sharp chin, a small mouth, a cute nose, big round eyes, and long eyelashes. Every part of her was as pure as a child's, but when combined together, she gave off an indescribable charm. That kind of charm seemed to seep into her bones. Just the movement of raising her eyes was enough to give off boundless flirtatiousness. This was especially true when the woman's eyes were slightly red. When she smiled, there was an unconcealable evil aura. At this moment, Meiji's hand was caressing Yi Hongyi's shoulder. The corner of her lips curled into a playful smile. No matter what, we don't believe that Wanner would lie to us. That's impossible, Yi Hongyi said resolutely. He did not push Meiji's hand away. Ever since Yao Moan had disappeared, Yi Hongyi had slept emptily every night. Those ordinary women couldn't arouse his interest at all until Meiji appeared. Yi Hongyi knew that he didn't love Meiji, but his body couldn't resist Meiji's allure. This was a woman that could make a man go crazy. Just a little bit of her was enough to set him on fire. There was no cure. But Azure Dragon wanted to argue but was stopped by Meiji. Seeing is believing. Since your Majesty doesn't believe me, then let's go take a look. In any case, your Majesty's heart has already flown over. Meiji's bell-like laughter was pleasing to the ear. Then she pulled Yi Hongyi outside. Didn't you say that Zhen's imperial palace is already filled with traps? When Meiji had appeared in Chu Palace, she had set up hidden weapons and traps in every corner of Chu Palace. The current Chu Palace could be said to be impenetrable. Even someone with exceptional martial arts wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. Traps are meant to deal with assassins. Your Majesty is naturally different. Meiji smiled charmingly. When Yi Hongyi heard this, he immediately shook off Meiji and walked towards Guan Osprey Palace. Military Officer Mei, Yao Moan really is playing dumb. This subordinate. When Azure Dragon saw that Yi Hongyi had walked far away, he immediately walked to Meiji's side and spoke resolutely. It doesn't matter if she's playing dumb or if she's really dumb. Since she's back, she won't be able to leave alive. You don't need to worry about this matter. This seat has its own plans. Meiji waved her hand to dismiss Azure Dragon, then swayed as she walked in the direction that Yi Hongyi had disappeared. The sound of hurried footsteps gradually approached. Yao Moen let out a deep breath. She waited until the door opened before she opened her eyes. Wanner, the person that Yi Hongyi had missed day and night, was right in front of him. At this moment, Yi Hongyi had long thrown Azure Dragon's words to the back of his mind and rushed towards Yao Moen. Your Majesty, Wanner misses you so much. After thinking about it on the way here, Yao Moen felt that even if she died, she wouldn't admit to playing dumb. As long as she didn't say anything, no matter how many witnesses there were, it wouldn't matter, especially since both Yao Sulwan and Azure Dragon had a reason to frame her. Jin also misses Wanner. Really misses you so much. Yi Hongyi hugged Yao Moen tightly, so tightly that Yao Moen found it hard to breathe. Your Majesty, she's been lying to you this entire time. If it wasn't for her, Yi Junqing wouldn't have been able to raise an army in Mongyuan at all. She and Yi Junqing have always been in cahoots. She's not an idiot at all. Yao Sulwan was burning with jealousy when she saw how Yi Hongyi was protecting Yao Moen in his arms like a precious treasure. Wawa, Your Majesty, second older sister is a bad person. Azure Dragon is also a bad person. Second older sister said that she was the real Empress of Chu, and that Wanner stole her position. Azure Dragon said that #### died unjustly, and that it was Wanner who harmed his brother. There's also Yi Junqing. He locked Wanner up and didn't even give Wanner anything to eat. Wah, in this world, only Your Majesty loves Wanner. Yao Moen was sobbing like a pear blossom in the rain. Your Majesty, Azure Dragon has seen everything. Even if you don't believe Sulwan's words, could it be that you don't believe Azure Dragon's words? Yao Sulwan had originally thought that Yao Moen would just sit and wait for death. She hadn't expected that Yao Moen would actually use this trick. Who knew how many times Yao Sulwan had fallen for this trick of playing dumb? Yao Sulwan really wanted to ask Yao Moen, can't you do something else? Yao Sulwan, you've got some guts. You actually dared to secretly leave the Imperial Palace. Did you really think that Zhen wouldn't be able to find you? When Yi Hongyi heard Yao Sulwan's voice, he slowly let go of Yao Moen. In the blink of an eye, the gentleness in his eyes turned into ice. Your Majesty, Yao Moen is just pretending to be dumb. This is the truth. Yao Sulwan was no longer calm. Did Yi Hongyi not hear her clearly? Compared to her secretly leaving the Imperial Palace, wasn't Yao Moen's matter more worthy of his anger? Come, drag Yao Sulwan out and beat her to death. Yi Hongyi had hated Yao Sulwan to death since a long time ago. He hadn't forgotten a single thing about how Yao Sulwan had threatened him. Now that Yi Junqing was rebelling, even if any rumors were to spread, he could push all the blame onto Yi Junqing. Your Majesty, you can't treat Sulwan like this. Yao Moen deceived the monarch. The one who should die is her. In order to get revenge for Yao Maxin, she colluded with Yi Junqing to rebel. She was the one who had done everything. Your Majesty, are you blind? The one who should die is Yao Moen. She knows the cause of Yao Maxin's death. She knows everything. Yao Sulwan roared hysterically. Her eyes were bloodshot, and they seemed to be spitting out flames as they shot towards Yao Moen, who was hiding behind Yi Hongyi. Chapter 344. Yao Moen still felt a bit regretful. After all, she wanted to keep Yao Sulwan alive. She still hoped that Yao Sulwan would be able to expose Yi Hongyi's evil deeds in court. However, she couldn't even protect herself right now, so she really didn't have that ability. Just as Yao Sulwan was about to be dragged out of Guan Osprey Palace by the guards, Meiji arrived with small steps. Your Majesty just escaped danger. Your Majesty, just treat it as a blessing. Just spare consortly. Besides, this seat still has some use for this seat. Meiji's appearance caused Yao Moen to jolt. The moment she had called herself this seat, Yao Moen had guessed her identity. It seemed that Yi Junqing's raising of the flag had alarmed the iron-blooded army. First it was Isol, and now Meiji. Your Majesty, spare me. Sulwan knows her wrongs. But Sulwan is truly thinking for Your Majesty's sake. Yao Moen. Yao Sulwan refused to give up. She didn't know how to prove that Yi Hongyi wouldn't believe that Yao Moen wasn't a fool. Your Majesty Consort Li is truly insensible. Your Majesty and the Empress have reunited after such a short time, yet you're spoiling the mood. This seat seemed to have heard you insult His Majesty for being blind. TSK, this is your fault. Sometimes, when you say the wrong things, you have to be punished. Meiji had just finished speaking when a cold light shot out of her fingertip towards Yao Sulwan's left eye. At almost the same time, Yao Sulwan let out a miserable cry and fell to the ground. It hurts. Wanner is so scared. When Yao Sulwan's left eye continued to bleed and she cried out in pain, Yao Moen dove into Yi Hongyi's embrace with tears in her eyes. Come, hurry and carry consortly to the Imperial Hospital. Otherwise, Her Majesty Empress Phoenix's eyes will be sullied. Meiji's red lips curled up slightly. Her bewitching eyes seemed to inadvertently sweep across Yao Moen's terrified face. Then, she swayed and left without saying another word. Yao Moen only came out of Yi Hongyi's embrace when the cries gradually faded away. Your Majesty, Wanner misses you so much. Yao Moen gently caressed Yi Hongyi's face as her clear eyes shimmered with tears. In the blink of an eye, the tears rolled down. Wanner, do you know how Yao Maxin died? Yi Hongyi couldn't help but reach out to wipe away the moisture on Yao Moen's face, but his voice was incomparably cold. Yao Sulwan's words echoed in his ears. Adding on Azure Dragon's certainty, he suddenly felt a bit uncertain. Was the Yao Moen in front of him really not an idiot? Second older sister said that it was His Majesty who threw eldest sister's child to death and even gave eldest sister a dagger. She said that although eldest sister committed suicide, she was forced to death by His Majesty. But Wanner doesn't believe even a single punctuation mark in second older sister's words. Yao Moen's eyes flickered with tears as she looked towards Yi Hongyi irresolutely. Why? Yi Hongyi stared closely into Yao Moen's eyes. He was very afraid that he would see a gaze that didn't belong to an idiot in Yao Moen's eyes, so his grip on Yao Moen's hand gradually tightened. Because Wanner said that no matter what His Majesty says, Wanner will believe it. His Majesty said that eldest sister died from a difficult birth, then eldest sister died from a difficult birth. Although what second older sister said is so true, Wanner knows that she just wants Wanner to hate His Majesty. But what can I do? Wanner can't do it. Wanner can't hate His Majesty. How eldest sister died isn't important at all. What's important is that Wanner only has His Majesty left now. Yao Moen felt like she was going to vomit. If she didn't forcefully hold it in, she probably would have vomited even her stomach. Jeanera, Shin only has you left now. Yi Hongyi dispelled the grudge in his heart and abruptly pulled Yao Moen into his embrace, burying his head into her snow-white neck. When Yin Shui returned, her left arm was already soaked in blood. Her body was ice-cold and her face was as pale as paper. Yin Shui? Why is it like this? What happened? Feng Lin helped Yin Shui onto the seat first. Yu Er then pulled open Yin Shui's sleeve and shockingly saw that there were 3 bloody holes as thick as fingers on Yin Shui's left arm. However, there was no sharp blade inside. It's an icicle and it's already melted. Fortunately, there was only some ordinary poison mixed in. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been able to return. But don't worry, Master is fine. He's currently in Guan Osprey Palace. Yin Shui's lips were so dry that blood was seeping out. Her voice was extremely weak. Icicle? With your abilities, you couldn't dodge a hidden weapon? Yi Junqing frowned as he looked towards Yin Shui in disbelief. Prince doesn't know this, but the number of people who can use icicles as a hidden weapon can be counted on one hand. Among them, the most impressive is the Silver Dragon Old Man, as Yin Shui spoke. Yu Er had already finished dressing his wound. A god-level character, no wonder even Yin Shui couldn't dodge it. When Lei Ting heard this, his brows furrowed deeply. But if that old man had lived until now, he'd be at least 150 years old, right? Lei Ting expressed his doubts. So Yin Shui is certain that the person who set up the icicle formation in the Imperial Palace wasn't the Silver Dragon Old Man. Yin Shui's words caused everyone to wipe at their sweat. Wasn't that obvious? But it was definitely the Silver Dragon Old Man's last disciple, Meiji. Yin Shui's expression was solemn. Then what do you mean? Yi Junqing looked towards Yin Shui as he asked worriedly. The Silver Dragon Old Man is known as the leading expert in hidden weapons. Even the Tang sect can only look up to him in the dust. The thing he's most proud of in his life is the icicle formation. Now that Meiji has set up this formation in the Chu Palace, even if the Yin clan's old patriarch comes out, he still wouldn't be able to break through, much less Inshue. Inshue wasn't exaggerating. If it wasn't a god-level character, how could they have entered the godlike Iron Blood army? Everyone fell silent. This meant that saving Yao Moen was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. No matter how difficult it is, this prince must save Yao Moen. Yi Junqing naturally understood Inshue's meaning, but how could he give up? Prince, don't be impatient. Actually, Inshue has thought of a method, but I just don't have absolute confidence. Inshue hesitated for a moment, then continued. At the time, Inshue was by Master's side, so she knew that eunuch Zhou, who was in charge of selecting palace maids from outside the palace, was Master's trusted aide. Master owed him a great favor, so it wouldn't be difficult to send someone in, said Inshue seriously. I'll go. When Yu Er heard this, she spoke up bravely. That's not appropriate. The layout of the imperial palace is complex. If we want to get close to Master, we'll need to avoid Meiji spies and investigate the layout of the icicle formation. We'll need to be very familiar with the layout of the palace. I'll go, said Inshue resolutely. But your injuries won't heal for at least 7 to 8 days. Yu Er objected. You guys don't need to say anymore. This prince will go. Yi Junqing's words shocked everyone. At the side, Yu Er cautiously reminded him, Prince, it's the palace maids. On the 3rd day after returning to Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moen already felt that the situation wasn't good. There were several times when she quietly called out to Inshue from the inner chambers, but no one answered. According to Yao Moen's analysis, Inshue should have received the news the day she was kidnapped. If there were no accidents, Inshue should have appeared in Guan Osprey Palace by now. However, there was no movement at all. The most likely reason was that Chu Palace was heavily guarded and Inshue couldn't get in. As for whether or not she was playing dumb, no one bothered to investigate. Only Yi Hongyi would occasionally come to Guan Osprey Palace to take a look. Yao Moen felt that she wasn't in any danger for now, so she didn't think too much about it and just focused on entertaining herself. For Yao Moen, the most enjoyable place was Pure Flowers Palace. At the time, Yao Sulwan had been carried to the Imperial Hospital to hastily bandage her left eye before being carried back to Pure Flowers Palace. Second older sister, are you feeling better? When Yao Moen arrived, Yao Sulwan was lying on the bed in a light sleep. As the saying goes, a dragon swims in shallow waters, a tiger falls to level ground. The once unparalleled Yao Sulwan had offended quite a few people, so when she was down and out, she suffered retribution. Even though those imperial doctors had helped her stop the bleeding, they had only applied the lowest grade painkillers, so Yao Sulwan had been in pain the entire night. She had only just begun to feel a little tired. Chapter 345. Yao Mo Wan. Yao Mo Wan, you devil. I hate you. Get lost. When Yao Sulwan heard Yao Moen's voice, she jumped up from the bed and glared fiercely at her mortal enemy with her remaining right eye. Second sister, don't be like this. This isn't Wan Er's fault. Wan Er already told second older sister not to speak ill of his majesty, but second older sister didn't listen. Now that she only has one eye left, who can she blame? Yao Moen saw that Yao Sulwan's left eye was covered by a white gauze, and that there were faint traces of blood seeping out of the gauze. Yao Moen suddenly thought of a saying, a sin caused by heaven can be forgiven, but a sin caused by oneself cannot be forgiven. This kind of punishment was far from enough for Yao Sulwan. Yao Mo Wan, what other tricks do you want to play? Yao Sulwan saw that Yao Moen was wearing an innocent face, but the look in her eyes was incomparably evil. For a moment, Yao Sulwan didn't dare to step forward. She only leaned against the side of the bed and questioned angrily. Second sister, what are you talking about? Wanner didn't have second sister's ability. When it came to tricks, who could beat second sister? 7-colored fish? Do you think Wanner is stupid? How could there be a 7-colored fish in this world? Even if there was, someone as evil as second sister would definitely not be able to see it. You want to steal the emperor from Wanner. Unfortunately, the emperor only likes Wanner and doesn't even look at you. Without Inshue secretly keeping an eye on her, Yao Moen naturally didn't dare to be as unbridled as she was in the past. Even so, she still had a way to infuriate Yao Sulwan. Get lost. Get out. This empress doesn't want to listen to you. This time, Yao Sulwan was completely enlightened. Regardless of whether Yao Moen was there or not, Yi Hongyi would never tolerate her. From the moment she carried Zhong'er into the cold palace and personally saw Yi Hongyi throw Zhong'er to death, Yi Hongyi couldn't tolerate her anymore. Second sister, don't be so harsh. Wan'er has legs. Since second sister doesn't like it, then Wan'er will leave. Yao Moen shrugged. When she turned around, she deliberately glanced at Yao Sulwan with a mysterious light in her eyes and her lips curved into a strange smile. Ma Xin. Yao Ma Xin. Huh? Are you mocking me? You have no right to laugh at me. You're already dead. But this empress is still alive. Scram. Yao Sulwan suddenly grabbed the glass lampshade and threw it in the direction Yao Moen had left in. When she heard the roars coming from Pure Flower's palace, Yao Moen couldn't help but shake her head. One eye really did affect her vision. Since her goal had been achieved, Yao Moen didn't stay for long. She strolled around to the imperial garden. What astonished Yao Moen was that not a single chrysanthemum had bloomed. If she remembered correctly, the imperial garden should have been full of chrysanthemums by this time in the past. Frost? Yao Moen subconsciously walked into the garden. She discovered that the chrysanthemums in the garden were all in buds and covered in a layer of white frost. The weather has been sunny recently, so where did the frost come from? Just as Yao Moen was hesitating, she suddenly heard a familiar clamor coming from nearby. All of you better be careful. This is the imperial garden. Every blade of grass and tree here is more valuable than your life. Who knows, the one you damaged might be the treasure of one of the palace masters. When the time comes, you'll be beaten with a dozen sticks, and if it's more serious, you'll be skinned. Eunuch Zhou's voice was especially easy to remember. That shrill voice was like stepping on a mouse's tail. When he shouted, it was so piercing that it hurt people's ears. At this moment, Eunuch Zhou was reprimanding the palace maids he had just picked from outside the palace. The expression on his face was extremely exaggerated. Just based on that face, the palace maids could already feel the severe consequences of trampling on these flowers and plants. Eunuch Zhou, hurry and shut up. Your voice is so piercing. Yao Moen wasn't used to this. She immediately stood up and shouted, Yo, it's your Imperial Highness the Empress. What are you all standing around for? Hurry and pay your respects to your Imperial Highness the Empress. When he saw that it was Yao Moen, Eunuch Zhou became even more spirited. His voice instantly rose an octave, causing Yao Moen to stomp her feet in anger. Shoo! Sage! Yao Moen kept puffing her cheeks. Eunuch Zhou finally understood and ordered the palace maids behind him to keep quiet. Yao Moen finally sighed in relief and immediately turned to run for her life. But when she passed by the group of palace maids, Yao Moen suddenly stopped and forced herself not to look over. That's right. I don't like those two palace maids in Guan Osprey Palace, so switch to those two. Yao Moen casually pointed at the palace made closest to her before leaving. Io, you guys have really reached the heavens in a single step. You can actually serve in Guan Osprey Palace. Hurry and get up, go back and prepare. Eunuch Zhou looked at the palace maids Yao Moen was pointing at and hurriedly urged. Only when Eunuch Zhou left with the palace maids did Meiji walk out from the shadows. Honored seat, in this subordinate's opinion, that Yao Moen might really be an idiot. Behind Meiji, who was dressed in a light green dress, stood a handsome man with regular features. At this moment, this man was expressing his opinion about everything that had just happened. Tainana, why is your intelligence on the same level as Yao Sulwan's? You're actually tangled up in these meaningless things. Is it important whether Yao Moen is an idiot or not? She's definitely going to die here. Right now, the most important thing for us is to capture all the people that came to rescue her. Especially Yin Nansheng. Don't let a single one of them go. Meiji's voice gradually turned cold and her charming eyes flashed with a cold light. This subordinate understands. Tianan's heart sank. He knew that Meiji had taken the initiative to ask for the military commander's help because of Yin Nansheng. Go investigate the two palace maids Yao Moen pointed out just now. Whether there's a problem or not, give her another 2. Meiji took a deep breath and did her best to make her voice sound less agitated. This subordinate obeys. Tainan received the order and left, leaving Meiji standing in place. The wind lifted the hair on her forehead, and a trace of sorrow that didn't match her seductive features flashed through her charming eyes. When she returned to Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moen walked into the bedroom and closed the door behind her. Then she lay down on the bed and covered herself with a brocade quilt. After a while, Yao Moen suddenly got up and threw the quilt to the ground. She muttered angrily, "Yi Junqing, you idiot!" Eunuch Zhou naturally moved quickly. After noon, he brought the 2 new palace maids through the doors of Guan Osprey Palace. "This old servant kowtows in salute to your Imperial Highness." When Eunuch Zhou stepped into the main hall, Yao Moen was eating desserts out of boredom. "What are you two just standing there for? Hurry up and pay your respects to your Imperial Highness." Eunuch Zhou bowed and flicked his sleeves at the 2 palace maids behind him. The 2 palace maids naturally didn't dare to tarry. Although their salutes were a bit out of practice, they were still extremely respectful. They don't seem to be the 2 that Wanner chose. They're so ugly. There's no way Wanner wants them. Yao Moen glanced at the 2 palace maids behind Eunuch Zhou and suddenly felt that the desserts had a bitter taste that was extremely hard to swallow. Your Imperial Highness, don't just look at how ugly these 2 palace maids are. They're extremely meticulous. They'll definitely serve your Imperial Highness well." Eunuch Zhou found it a bit difficult to speak. At the time, when Tainan had arrived at the new slave house, he had been referring to these 2 palace maids. Everyone in the palace knew that Tainan was Meiji's subordinate. Now that Meiji was in charge of everything in the palace, there was nothing Eunuch Zhou could do. If you don't like them, then you don't like them. Make them leave. "Eunuch Zhou, your voice is so noisy." Yao Moen was unhappy, so she tossed away the desserts in her hands and got up to leave. However, to her surprise, one of the palace maids suddenly walked up to pick up the desserts and walked to Yao Moen's side. "Your Imperial Highness, if you don't want this servant, then this servant can only be punished to the cold palace or the Zinzeku like those palace maids who made a mistake. This servant begs your Imperial Highness to show mercy." As the palace maid spoke, she knelt down in front of Yao Moen with a plop, tears streaming down her face. Chapter 346. Why are you crying all of a sudden? All right, just stay. But you guys have to be obedient. Yao Moen said reluctantly. Nyang, don't worry, this servant will definitely listen. The kneeling palace maid wiped her tears and kowtowed in thanks. Yao Moen turned to look towards the other palace maid. Then what about you? Are you going to stay as well? Yao Moen's brows furrowed as she looked at the palace maid in front of her. She was very angry inside, but she had to suppress her laughter to the point of suffering internal injuries. This servant begs for Nyang to have mercy. The palace maid lowered her eyes and bowed slightly. Then it'll be the 2 of you. What are your names? Yao Moen let out a long sigh, then walked over to the chair with great difficulty and sat down. Her stomach hurt, so her intestines were probably cramping from laughing too hard. This servant Yuer kowtows in salute to Nyang. Yuer stood up happily and walked behind Yao Moen to look at the palace maid behind Eunuch Zhou. This servant Chinger kowtows in salute to Nyang. Yi Junqing had once thought that the most painful thing in the world was to go to the battlefield and return with a dead body on the battlefield. But that wasn't the case. The most painful thing was to clearly be a man but act like a woman. Then it's the 2 of you. Eunuch Zhou, you can leave. Yao Moen nodded and dismissed Eunuch Zhou. Just as she was about to pick up the teapot, Yuer had already poured some tea for her. When Yi Junqing saw Eunuch Zhou's figure disappear from Guan Osprey Palace, he straightened his back and walked over to Yao Moen. However, before he could say anything, Yao Moen sprayed tea all over him. Cough. This prince came to save you out of goodwill. What kind of attitude is this? When Yi Junqing saw that his clothes were still steaming, he couldn't take it anymore and his voice became much rougher. My apologies, I couldn't help it. Prince, can't you walk a bit more normally? Yao Moen coughed and forced herself to calm down. There's someone spying outside Guan Osprey Palace. Do you think this prince was willing? Yi Junqing maintained the posture of a palace maid, but his voice was clearly that of a man. This scene was truly strange, Yao Moen thought. So he can see people but not hear voices? Yao Moen lifted her brows as she looked towards Yi Junqing. Master is right. There's no one monitoring Guan Osprey Palace, and the martial arts of the person outside aren't at the level of being able to spy on us. Master doesn't have to worry, explained Yuer calmly. That's good. Yuer, no matter what method you use, escort this androgynous thing out of the imperial palace before tonight. Then having Shui escort him back to Ji province. Yao Moen knew that no one was eavesdropping, so she put on a stern expression and spoke solemnly. Who's a thing? Also, this prince is here to save you. If I don't save you, this prince won't leave, argued Yi Junqing. If it was in the past, Moen could play around with Prince, but not now. Moen can't play around with the lives of hundreds of thousands of soldiers in Ji province. If something happens to Prince, have you thought about them? Who were they in Ji province for? Then this matter is settled. Yao Moen stood up and turned to enter the inner room. Prince. Yuer was put in a difficult position. She didn't expect that Yao Moen would be so resolute. There was no room for discussion at all. Stand guard outside. Yi Junqing took in a deep breath, then walked shyly towards the inner room. The originally solemn atmosphere was instantly warmed up by Yi Junqing's few steps. In the inner room, Yao Moen took off her pearl hairpin in a fit of pique and threw it heavily on the dressing table. The door creaked open. Yao Moen didn't need to turn around to know who it was. It was just like back in the Imperial Garden. She only needed to smell that familiar scent to know that Yi Junqing was inside. Prince, there's no need to say more. Moen has already decided on this matter. Yao Moen glanced at Yi Junqing in the mirror. He was pure, pleasant, and as beautiful as a flower. Even dressed as a palace maid, Yi Junqing could still be considered a beauty. This prince can do anything you want except for this matter. No matter what, this prince must get you out of here. Otherwise, this prince won't take a single step away. Yi Junqing was extraordinarily calm. His voice was like still water without a single ripple. You. Yao Moen abruptly stood up. When she turned around, she met Yi Junqing's deep and distant gaze. That gaze was pure and penetrating, filled with undisguised affection. Yao Moen's body trembled. She couldn't be more familiar with this gaze. How many times had she ignored this gaze and purposely ignored Yi Junqing's affection? Now she regretted it, but she still couldn't accept it. Beauty traps are useless against Moen. Yao Moen harumphed coldly, then sat back down on the chair. When Yi Junqing heard this, his face turned pale. Who told you this was a beauty trap? This is clearly a beauty trap. Yi Junqing criticized silently. Meiji set up an ice cone formation in the rear palace. This formation is extremely tyrannical, and Yin Shui was heavily injured when she charged through it. Even Han Jini might not be able to escape unscathed. Right now, we can only break this formation from the inside. This prince and Yuer snuck in because we wanted to draw out a detailed map of this formation and find a way to break it. Yi Junqing didn't care if Yao Moen wanted to hear it or not. Yin Shui was injured? How was her injury? Yao Moen knew that something must have happened to Yin Shui and asked worriedly. Yin Shui's left arm was injured by a hidden weapon, and the hidden weapon was poisoned. Fortunately, Yin Shui knows how to detoxify poison, so she's fine now. The day this prince and Yuer entered the palace, Yin Shui had already rushed to Phoenix Feather Manor, said Yi Junqing truthfully. Even Han Jini couldn't escape unscathed, so why are you looking for Yin Nansheng? After hearing that Yin Shui was fine, Yao Moen finally relaxed. Thus, her attitude towards Yi Junqing turned cold once more. The heavens bestowed him with such a devilish face, he can't just waste it, said Yi Junqing seriously. When Yao Moen heard this, she was stunned and turned to look towards Yi Junqing. When did Prince become so insidious? I've been with a certain someone for a long time, so I've more or less been influenced. Yi Junqing was extremely modest. When Yao Moen heard this, her face darkened. Due to Yi Junqing's insistence, Yao Moen finally agreed to let Yi Junqing stay, but he had to listen to all orders. Inside the imperial study, Meiji's arms were currently wrapped around Yi Hongyi's neck. Her ample bosom was inadvertently rubbing against Yi Hongyi's back. Although she didn't like Yi Hongyi, she needed the power in Yi Hongyi's hands. Also, she had to admit that she was having a great time fighting with the man in her arms on the dragon couch. At this time, Tainan was walking in from outside. When he saw the scene in front of him, his heart clenched inexplicably, but his expression didn't change. Replying, "Your Highness, this subordinate has already investigated the 2 palace maids that Yao Moen mentioned. There's nothing wrong with them." Tainan stood respectfully to the side as he reported. "Kill them." Meiji straightened her body and swayed as she walked around the dragon table to stand in front of Tainan. "Yes." Tainan accepted the order and was about to retreat when Meiji called him back. "How are the 2 palace maids in Guan Osprey Palace?" Replying, "Your Highness, those 2 palace maids were personally assigned by Tainan. Tainan has also secretly observed them, but there's nothing wrong with them," replied Tainan truthfully. "Understood, you can leave." Meiji waved her hand to dismiss Tainan. When she turned to look at Yi Hongyi's cold and emotionless face, she saw Yi Hongyi. Chapter 347. "She's our empress. You're going too far." Yi Hongyi looked towards Meiji coldly as he reprimanded. "Your Majesty is wrongly accusing Meiji. If it wasn't for Meiji's strict defenses, Your Majesty believes that the Empress would have been kidnapped the 2nd day after she entered the palace." Meiji didn't get angry. She gracefully walked back to Yi Hongyi's side, and her slender fingers brushed past Yi Hongyi's handsome face. "What do you mean?" Yi Hongyi unintentionally brushed Meiji's hand aside. On the 2nd day after Empress entered the palace, the leading hidden guard clans in Shui wanted to charge into the palace. If it wasn't for Meiji's icicle formation, Empress would have been captured by her a long time ago. As Meiji spoke, her jade fingers moved restlessly into Yi Hongyi's clothes. "In Shui? Who's in Shui?" Yi Hongyi never paid attention to the matters of the martial world, so he naturally hadn't heard of the Yin clan. Who Yin Shui isn't important. What's important is that Yin Shui's master is Yin Nansheng, the current alliance head of the martial world, the master of Phoenix Feather Manor. Also, he's Yi Juanqing's senior brother. Why does Your Majesty think that Yin Nansheng wanted to kidnap the Empress? Meiji's slender arms moved like a snake as she undid Yi Hongyi's clothes. Her fingers moved in circles on Yi Hongyi's firm abs. "Yi Juanqing. He actually dares to have designs on Wanner? Watch if we don't skin him alive." Yi Hongyi's gaze turned cold as he roared. Right at this time, there was a sudden commotion outside. Yi Hongyi was just about to speak when Yao Moen suddenly pushed open the door and barged in. She just happened to see this scene. "Your Majesty. Your Majesty doesn't like playing with Wanner anymore." Yao Moen hadn't thought about catching them in the act, but since she saw it, she had to say something. "Wanner. Wanner, why are you here?" The moment Yi Hongyi saw Yao Moen, he suddenly pushed Meiji away and got off the throne. "Your Majesty didn't go find Wanner today. Wanner missed Your Majesty, that's why I came." Yao Moen looked towards Meiji timidly as she rubbed against Yi Hongyi's chest. The more Yao Moen thought about it, the more she felt that aside from Meiji, Yi Hongyi would also be familiar with the layout of the icicle formation. As long as she could get Yi Hongyi to accompany her for a few rounds, she believed that she would definitely gain something. "I was careless. Let's go. I will accompany Wanner for a stroll." Even if Yao Moen was only an idiot, Yi Hongyi still felt his cheeks heat up, as if he had been caught in the act. "Sure. Then does this older sister want to come along?" Yao Moen blinked her clear eyes, but her voice was a little unwilling. "She still has matters to attend to. Zhen will bring you to the Imperial Garden." Yi Hongyi couldn't be bothered with Meiji right now, and immediately walked away with Yao Moen. It just rained in the autumn. The snakes, insects, rats, and ants in the Imperial Garden are restless. "Your Majesty, you have to take care of the Empress." Meiji didn't care. Her smile was incomparably charming. Yao Moen dragged Yi Hongyi around for almost an entire day before returning to Guan Osprey Palace. "I'm so tired. Come over and massage my legs." Yao Moen walked into the main hall before Yi Hongyi and sat down on the chaise lounge. She then called Yi Juanqing over to massage her legs. "This servant kowtows in salute to Your Majesty." At the side, Yu obediently bowed to Yi Hongyi. "You may rise. Are you new here? Serve the Empress well. If you serve her well, Zhen will reward you." Yi Hongyi swept a glance at Yu, then sat down at the table. "Wanner, Zhen has accompanied you for an entire day. Your anger should have subsided by now, right? Yi Hongyi's eyes were filled with love, and his voice was so gentle that water could be squeezed out of it. Wan isn't angry? Oh, your Majesty is referring to chrysanthemums. That's strange. Chrysanthemums should bloom at this time every year. But why haven't there been a single one this year? Wan loves chrysanthemums the most. It's a pity I can't see them. Yao Moen lowered her eyes in disappointment. Chrysanthemums? Chrysanthemums? Yi Hongyi looked towards Yao Moen in astonishment. He had always thought that Yao Moen would remember the scene in the imperial study, but it turned out that he was just feeling guilty. But it doesn't matter. With your Majesty accompanying me, Wan will be happy no matter what I see. Yao Moen suddenly smiled brightly like a spring flower, but the corners of her lips twitched. As long as Wan is happy, Shen still has some memorials to read, so I won't be staying to accompany you tonight. However, Zhen promises Wan that Zhan will definitely come to accompany you tomorrow. Yi Hongyi also felt extremely tired. Adding on the fact that he had fought fiercely with Mei Ji last night, he probably didn't have the strength to satisfy Yao Moen right now. When Yao Moen saw Yi Hongyi's figure fade out of Guan Osprey Palace, she abruptly pulled back her legs. Does Prince think this is made of wood? It hurts. Yao Moen rubbed her legs as she looked towards Yi Junqing in annoyance. Yao Moen Yi Junqing stood up and looked towards Yao Moen with a serious expression. What? Asked Yao Moen angrily as she looked up. Putting aside whether or not you're good at anything else, you're just too talented at acting. After saying this, Yi Junqing walked out of the main hall without looking back. When facing Yi Hongyi, he really couldn't smile as brightly as Yao Moen. If it wasn't for the fact that his back was facing Yi Hongyi, he didn't know if he would be able to endure until Yi Hongyi left Guan Osprey Palace. Master, you're truly too wise. Prince's expression just now was truly frightening. Once Yi Junqing walked out of the main hall, Yu looked towards Yao Moen in admiration. It's already very rare that he was able to endure until Yi Hongyi left. Prepare a brush and paper for this consort. This consort wants to note down all the places that Yi Hongyi hasn't stepped into today. Yao Moen sighed in relief, then entered the bedroom with Yu. The late autumn wind blew into Pure Flower's palace, bringing with it a bone-chilling coldness. That slender figure stood in the wind, her long hair fluttering in the wind. It was so beautiful that it broke one's heart. However, when that figure turned around, all the beauty was like a mirror that had fallen to the ground, shattering into a complete mess. What do you want to do? Yao Sulwan's left eye was still covered by a white veil. At this moment, she was looking warily at the woman in green who had just walked in. In the entire imperial palace, the person that your highness consortly should be the least guarded against is Mei Ji. Mei Ji walked over to the table and elegantly folded the teacup. Her fair and slender fingers reached for the teapot, but the teapot was completely empty. There wasn't even any cold water inside. Your highness consort Li's days are a bit too miserable. Mei Ji helplessly put down the teacup and raised her charming eyes. You didn't come to drink water. If you have something to say, just say it. Yao Sulwan reflexively covered her left eye and couldn't help but retreat to the window. Exchanging an eye for a life. Your highness has really picked up a great bargain. In reality, Mei Ji should be considered your highness's savior, said Mei Ji leisurely with a smile. This consort's death isn't worth pitying, but this consort isn't willing to see Yao Moen receive retribution with my own eyes. She's not an idiot at all. This was the only thing that Yao Sulwan had been conflicted about from start to finish. It seems that your highness consort Li doesn't want to accept Mei Ji's favor. Then forget it. Mei Ji got up to leave, but was stopped by Yao Sulwan. What do you want me to do? Yao Sulwan knew that this time, she really was at the end of the road. Other than death, she couldn't think of a better ending. However, even if she died, she wouldn't let Yao Moen off. Straightforward. I want to know the relationship between Yin Nansheng and Yao Moen. Mei Ji returned to her seat and looked towards Yao Sulwan solemnly. Chapter 348. Yin Nansheng? Yao Sulwan furrowed her brows. This name sounded very unfamiliar. You fought with Yao Moen for so long. You don't know anything about her? Meiji didn't seem to care. If this consort remembers correctly, Yin Nanxing seems to be Yi Juanqing's senior brother. Is he related to Yao Moen? Yao Suwan looked towards Meiji in confusion. Meiji was speechless. She finally understood why Yao Suwan had fallen into such a miserable state. Just as Meiji was about to leave, Yao Suwan seemed to have thought of something and spoke up. Yao Moen has a hidden guard whose martial arts are extremely powerful. I think she's called In Shui. Yao Suwan didn't want to give up her last hope. Her heart suddenly shook as if a needle had pierced through it. It hurt, but she couldn't find the source of the pain. Meiji slowly turned around and looked at Yao Suwan coldly. What did you say Yao Moen's hidden guard was called? Her voice was like an icicle from the top of a snowy mountain. It was so cold that it made people shiver. She's called In Shui. Yao Suwan didn't understand why Meiji would have such a big reaction. Her voice trembled slightly as she subconsciously tried to cover her right eye. Are you sure In Shui is Yao Moen's hidden guard? Meiji approached Yao Suwan step by step. The powerful pressure made it hard for Yao Suwan to breathe. That In Shui calls Yao Moen master, so she should be her hidden guard. Back then, Yi Zixiao had transferred Ling Yun to her. At that time, she knew that hidden guards only had one master. Since In Shui called Yao Moen master, then In Shui was definitely Yao Moen's hidden guard. Yin Nansheng was actually willing. He was actually willing to give In Shui to Yao Moen. Meiji gritted her teeth. Everyone knew how valuable the Yin clan's hidden guards were. If it wasn't for their special relationship, how could he have given In Shui to Yao Moen and not Yi Juanqing? In Shui was originally Yin Nanxing's hidden guard. Yao Suwan had just opened her mouth to question when she heard two whooshing sounds. When she looked back, she saw that two finger-thick holes had appeared in the wall. Sensing Meiji's rage, Yao Suwan instantly fell silent. She just stood there timidly, not daring to say anything. You have a way to deal with Yao Moen? Meiji took a deep breath and looked towards Yao Suwan coldly. This consort has a method that can prove to your majesty that Yao Moen isn't an idiot. As long as your majesty believes this, Yao Moen definitely won't have a good ending. At worst, she'll be dismembered by 5 horses. Although Yao Suwan didn't know the reason, she could see the flames of jealousy in Meiji's eyes. What method? Meiji coldly looked at Yao Suwan, her voice cold and sinister. Yao Moen once admitted to this consort that everything she did was for Yi Juanqing's sake. From this, it's clear that her feelings for Yi Juanqing are already deeply rooted. If Yi Juanqing dies in front of her, she'll definitely reveal her true colors, said Yao Suwan. Yin Nanxing gave In Shui to her, but the person she actually likes is Yi Juanqing. But Yi Juanqing is currently far away in Ji province, so why would he appear in Chu Palace? The bitterness on Meiji's face instantly vanished. Just find someone to pretend to be him, Yao Suwan carefully suggested. The next day, Imperial Study reporting to your majesty. There's news from Guangning. Chao Kuan's army failed to attack the city and suffered heavy losses. Guangning is in a state of emergency, reported Qing Long worriedly as he handed the secret letter to Yi Hongyi. Preposterous. Truly preposterous. We've already sent an extra 200,000 troops. How could we have lost so miserably? Yi Hongyi flung the secret letter onto the ground, his eyes filled with rage. According to the scouts, it's because the rebel bandits developed a sky-piercing rat that can explode in midair. Its power is unparalleled, so our army suffered a crushing defeat, said Qing Long. Arrow explosion rat, sky-piercing rat. Why can the enemy develop such a powerful weapon, but Ice Soul can't? Qing Long, pass on our orders. Order Ice Soul to develop a weapon to deal with the enemy within 10 days. If we can't take Ji province in 10 days, we will execute him and exterminate his 9 generations. Yi Hongyi had long hated Ice Soul to death. Adding on the fact that they had lost so many battles, he was naturally enraged. But Qing Long wanted to dissuade him but was stopped by Yi Hongyi. As the vice-commandant of the Iron Blood Army, losing 3 battles in a row is enough punishment. If he loses this battle, we can't blame him for killing him. Seeing that Yi Hongyi had made up his mind, Qing Long could only accept the order and leave the imperial study. Not long after Qing Long left, Meiji gracefully walked in. It seems that your majesty isn't in a good mood. It just so happens that Meiji has prepared a good show for your majesty. I believe that this show will definitely make your majesty very happy. Meiji gracefully walked up the stairs and pulled the still enraged Yihangi to his feet. Then, she walked out of the imperial study. In the imperial garden, Yao Moen looked left and right but didn't see Yihangi's figure. Only then did she look at the little eunuch in front of her. Didn't you say that His Majesty asked her to meet here? Where's His Majesty? Yao Moen didn't recognize the eunuch in front of her, so there was definitely something fishy going on. Your Highness, please wait. His Majesty said that he wants to give Your Highness a pleasant surprise. It might take a while for him to finish preparing. Your Highness, don't be impatient. This servant will take his leave first, lied the little eunuch before leaving. Your Highness, if you're tired, how about this servant help you to wait in the pavilion in front? Next to Yao Moen, Yu Er felt that the atmosphere was strange. She took a step forward and whispered in Yao Moen's ear, Master, there seems to be a lot of people hiding in the surroundings. Although their martial arts aren't high, there are a lot of them. You two help me. Yao Moen pulled on Yu Er, then extended her other hand towards Yi Junqing. Since they were outside the palace, Yi Junqing did his best to play his role. So when Yao Moen stretched out her hand, Yi Junqing swayed his hips and jogged over to Yao Moen. The autumn wind blew against the bangs on his forehead, making him look extremely graceful and charming. PFFF, cough cough cough. Even though they had been together like this for 4 to 5 days, Yao Moen still couldn't get used to Yi Junqing's current appearance. Be serious. In order to not get angry, Yi Junqing threw out all the mirrors in his room. Even so, Yao Moen's expression constantly reminded him of how funny his appearance was. Prince Ah, if you were willing to go to Drunken Breeze, you'd definitely earn a lot. Yao Moen had been playing dumb from the start, so now her smile became even more unrestrained. At the side, Yu Er did her best to hold back her laughter, but unfortunately, her cultivation wasn't high enough, so she also burst out laughing. Building your happiness on other people's pain, aren't you lacking in morals? Yi Junqing took a few deep breaths before he managed to suppress his urge to go berserk. Prince, to tell you the truth, we're also in a lot of pain. When Yu Er found out the truth, Yi Junqing immediately turned into stone. After entering the pavilion, Yao Moen told Yi Junqing and Yu Er that no matter what happened later, they mustn't have any reactions that a palace maid should have. Yi Junqing and Yu Er naturally knew that there was a trap, so they were especially cautious. After about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Yao Moen grew impatient from waiting and was just about to get up to leave when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. Yao Moen immediately turned to glare at Yi Junqing, only to see that he was looking ahead in shock. Only then did Yao Moen follow his gaze, and her heart abruptly trembled. Chapter 349. Moen, this prince has finally found you. Hurry and come with this prince. As Yao Moen looked at the man in front of her who looked and sounded exactly the same as Yi Junqing, she was stunned. However, she already understood what was going on. This move. Could it be that they didn't know that she was the one who had used this move so many times? Yi Junqing? Why are you here? Yao Moen looked towards the fake Yi Junqing in shock, but she didn't leave the pavilion. Behind her, Yi Junqing and Yu Er exchanged glances. They both felt that this wasn't going to be easy to act out. If that fake Yi Junqing decided to shoot the two of them, then wouldn't they be dead? Die? Or die? Moen, you. Just as Yi Junqing was about to walk forward, Yao Moen suddenly shouted, Don't come over yet. Squat down and cover your eyes. Without my permission, you're not allowed to turn around. Yao Moen suddenly turned around and winked at Yi Junqing and Yu Er. The two of them naturally understood and squatted down in the safest corner. Moen, this prince has come to save you. Hurry and come with this prince. Just as the two of them squatted down, the fake Yi Junqing had already jumped in front of Yao Moen. He grabbed Yao Moen's arm with one hand and pulled her out of the pavilion before she could speak. Almost at the same time, several dozen imperial guards appeared, all of them armed with weapons. Insolent traitor. You actually dared to intrude into Chu Palace. Guards, kill without mercy. As soon as the leader of the Imperial Guard said this, the rest of the guards rushed over like a swarm of bees. Moen, don't be afraid. With Junqing here, nothing will happen to you. Yi Junqing gripped Yao Moen's hand tightly with one hand and pulled out a long sword with the other to block the Imperial guards. This is what you get for not giving me food. This is what you get for not letting me go and finding His Majesty. Watch how Wanner takes care of you. Just as Yi Junqing was busying himself, Yao Moen suddenly pulled out a dagger from her sleeve. After aiming for a long time, she finally managed to cut Yi Junqing's pinky finger. Ah, Moen. Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen in pain. His shocked eyes instantly turned cold and the sharp sword in his hand stabbed towards Yao Moen's heart. Ah, Yi Junqing killed someone. In a moment of desperation, Yao Moen abruptly threw away the dagger and ran towards the pavilion. Almost at the same time, Yi Junqing and Yuer hugged Yao Moen from the corner. If they wanted to live after this, they had to show enough loyalty now. Fortunately, the Imperial guards weren't idiots. In the next second, they surrounded Yi Junqing. Moen, don't tell me you've forgotten our oath. Why? Yao Moen's heart didn't ache in the slightest as she watched more than 10 blades slash at Yi Junqing until he was drenched in blood. Thus, in this moment, she felt that she had wrongly cursed Chu Shi. Perhaps he had known from the start that that person wasn't Chu Ma Xin, which was why he had mercilessly killed him. However, when he saw the real Chu Ma Xin collapse in front of him, his heart should have ached. Fortunately, you're not that stupid, Yao Moen muttered as she looked at Yi Junqing, who had fallen to the ground in despair. She took a moment to glance at Qinger, who was wholeheartedly holding her. This prince wants to, but I have to be able to break in first. Yi Junqing felt that even if he died like this, it wouldn't be as painful as this. Why are you two idiots hugging me? I'm going to find His Majesty. Your Majesty. Yi Junqing wants to kill someone. When Yao Moen saw that Yi Junqing had no more strength to fight back, she suddenly shouted. Then she broke free from the two people next to her and ran out of the pavilion. In the shadows, Meiji's expression was extremely unsightly. Her charming eyes were suffused with cold. This is the good show you wanted us to watch? Not bad. It really is a good show. Yi Hongyi glanced at Meiji, then swung his sleeves and impatiently walked towards Yao Moen. Wanner. Yi Hongyi suddenly appeared in the corner. When Yao Moen heard this, she turned around and a trace of a playful smile flashed through her eyes. Your Majesty, hurry and come. Yi Junqing's caught him. He's right there. Yao Moen stumbled over to Yi Hongyi and pulled him back to the pavilion. At this time, that so-called Yi Junqing was no longer breathing. When the Imperial guards saw Yi Hongyi walk over, they stood to the left and right and waited respectfully. Your Majesty, look. He actually wanted to capture Wanner and bring her back. Just now, he wanted to kill Wanner. This scoundrel, who told him not to give Wanner food to eat, who told him to rebel, he deserved to die. Yao Moen glared at the corpse on the ground and tightly wrapped her arms around Yi Hongyi's arm. Wanner. Yi Hongyi ignored the corpse on the ground and looked deeply at the beauty next to him. HM? Yao Moen blinked towards Yi Hongyi. Even if the entire world doesn't believe you, we believe. We believe that in Wanner's heart, there is only us. Yi Hongyi gently stroked Yao Moen's hair, his eyes filled with love. And Wanner only has your Majesty in her heart. Yao Moen nodded firmly as if using her own method to make a vow. Yi Hongyi's heart was moved, and he immediately pulled Yao Moen into his embrace. In the pavilion, Yi Junqing saw all of this. He clearly knew that Yao Moen was acting, but his heart felt like it was on fire and the pain was unbearable. Thus, after returning to Guan Osprey Palace, Yi Junqing didn't say anything. Your Highness, are you scared? When Yao Moen saw that Yi Junqing was expressionlessly sitting on the chaise lounge for a long time without saying anything, she looked towards Yuer in confusion. Maybe he's angry. Yuer replied seriously. Yao Moen, this prince will help you charge out. Yi Junqing finally spoke, but there wasn't the slightest hint of ridicule in his eyes. Charge out of Guan Osprey Palace and then get turned into a sieve by Meiji and the others? Yao Moen didn't think much of it. They had only died once, so they really didn't learn from their mistakes. But, just as Yi Junqing was about to retort, a shrill voice suddenly came from outside Guan Osprey Palace. This old servant kowtows in salute to your highness. Yao Moen was rather surprised by Eunuch Zhou's appearance. Eunuch Zhou, speak a little quieter, it's so piercing, said Yao Moen angrily as she subconsciously covered her ears. Your highness, please quell your anger. This old servant knows his wrongs. When Eunuch Zhou saw Yao Moen frown, he immediately lowered his voice and respectfully waited at the side. Eunuch Zhou, why have you come? Yao Moen rubbed her ears as she looked towards Eunuch Zhou suspiciously. Could it be that Meiji had come up with some bad idea again? That's right. This old servant almost forgot. Wasn't your highness dissatisfied with these two palace maids that day? Today, this old servant brought another one. Your highness, please take a look and see if you're satisfied. As Eunuch Zhou spoke, he turned around, but there was no one behind him. Aya, what are you hiding outside for? Hurry up and come in to kowtow to your highness. Yao Moen and Yi Junqing exchanged a glance, then looked towards the door. When they saw this palace maid who had finally come out, everyone was dumbstruck. How charming, how enchanting, how perverted. The three of them sighed inwardly. Although the palace maid in front of them was dressed like an ordinary palace maid, when this ordinary palace dress was put on her body, it shone with extraordinary splendor. Her appearance was devastatingly beautiful, and it was hard to tell if she was a man or a woman. This was especially true when she lowered her head submissively. Anyone who saw her would feel an urge to pounce on her and fiercely beat her up. Chapter 350. You. What's your name? Yao Moen used a lot of effort to close her mouth, but she couldn't control the rise and fall of her voice. This servant is Sheng'er. Yin Nanqing's voice was extremely pleasant to listen to. It was gentle but not sinister, like an oriole leaving the valley, yet also like the sounds of nature. Eunuch Zhou, take him back. Yao Moen took a deep breath before giving this order. Yao Moen's words shocked everyone. 4 pairs of eyes looked towards Yao Moen in confusion. Your highness doesn't like this palace maid? Eunuch Zhou was troubled. He had taken 500 taels of gold from Yin Nanqing. In any case, just take her away. It doesn't matter if it's the imperial kitchen or the Zinzheku, just take her away. Yao Moen had originally thought that Meiji was trying to plant a spy by her side. If that was the case, then she would stay. However, it just had to be Yin Nanqing. The entire Guan Osprey Palace was under Meiji's supervision. Now that a palace maid had appeared out of nowhere, she would naturally investigate it thoroughly. If she found anything, not only would Yin Nanqing be exposed, Yi Junqing might not be able to keep his life. She definitely couldn't take this risk. But this palace maid is very obedient. Eunuch Zhou refused to give up. Your highness, someone has come. Right at this time, Yuer suddenly leaned over to Yao Moen's ear and reported in a low voice. This is bad. Yao Moen sighed softly. At this time, Yi Junqing had already walked behind Yao Moen and straightened his posture, looking just like a woman. Yin Nanqing wasn't stupid, so he moved to stand in the most inconspicuous corner. A delicate fragrance wafted in. Meiji was walking on this fragrance. Her beautiful face was so enchanting that it made people sigh in admiration. Your highness, it's so lively here. Meiji sauntered into the main hall. Her red lips curved into a smile as she looked around before returning to Yao Moen. Who are you? Yao Moen blinked and pouted. Your highness is truly forgetful. Meiji and your highness have met twice. The first time was here. Yao Sulwan insulted his majesty, and it was Meiji who personally taught her a lesson. As for the second time, it was in the imperial study. Meiji didn't bow and just walked towards Yao Moen. It's you. You came to look for me? Yao Moen suddenly understood, but her heart was at a loss. I heard that Eunuch Zhou has sent a palace maid to the empress. For safety, Meiji wants to see that palace maid first. What do you think? Meiji's words left Yao Moen completely speechless. She just knew that something would happen. That day, in order to get Yi Junqing transferred into Guan Osprey Palace, she had intentionally chosen 2 unrelated palace maids to avoid arousing Meiji's suspicions. Now that Eunuch Zhou had brought Yin Nanqing over without any warning, wasn't this just courting death? Yes, but Wanner doesn't like her. As matters stood, she could only abandon the rook to protect the general. Yao Moen pointed at Yin Nanxing, who was in the corner, without any hesitation. Oh! Meiji followed the direction of Yao Moen's finger and looked towards Yin Nanxing. Her eyes instantly froze and she walked over. Raise your head. Her enchanting voice carried a bone-piercing temptation. As Meiji spoke, her slender jade-like fingers gently lifted Yin Nanxing's perfect chin. The scene was so pitiful that the dignified chancellor of the Wulin world was actually being molested in public. If someone said it, no one would dare to believe it. Are you new here? What's your name? Meiji's fingers caressed Yin Nanxing's chin. Her red lips curved slightly, and her eyes flickered with a different kind of charm. This servant Shen. The image of a woman selling her body to bury her father but being molested by a tyrant suddenly appeared in Yin Nanxing's mind. In this instant, Yin Nanxing really wanted to say, "Yi, don't be like this, Shang In, that's a good name." Unfortunately, Her Highness the Empress doesn't like you. Eunuch Zhou, take this Shang back and find a place to settle her down. Meiji actually didn't ask any further. She just gave Yin Nanxing a deep look before leaving Guan Osprey Palace. Yao Moen, which finger of yours is pointing at this chancellor? Which finger? Once Meiji left, Yin Nanxing rushed in front of Yao Moen without a care for his image. His eyes were spitting fire. When Yao Moen pointed at him, he suddenly felt like he had been betrayed. Does Chancellor think that Meiji is blind? If Moen doesn't point at you, she won't be able to see you? Yao Moen felt extremely helpless. She knew that Yin Nanxing had good intentions, but there were times when good intentions led to bad things. That's not the problem. It's the problem with your attitude. Yin Nanxing was very angry. Just who did he dress up like this for? We'll talk about the problem of attitude later. Right now, it's best for Chancellor to leave Chu Palace immediately. Also, Eunuch Zhou, you should also find a place to hide. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep your little life. Yao Moen didn't have the time to explain too much to Yin Nanxing. When Meiji entered, Eunuch Zhou realized that he had been careless this time, so he pulled Yin Nanxing away from Guan Osprey Palace. Wait. When Yin Nanxing reached the door, he seemed to think of something and turned back. If Chancellor really feels that Moen was in the wrong, then Moen will definitely apologize in the future. However, there's no time to waste right now. It's best for Chancellor to leave quickly. Yao Moen was a little anxious when she saw that Yin Nanxing had returned. Junqing? You're Yi Junqing? Amazing! Yin Nanxing's words caused everyone to collapse. When the news of Yin Nanxing's capture reached Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moen wasn't too surprised. Based on Meiji's thoughts, it would be surprising if Yin Nanxing had escaped. Yin Nanxing was injured? Yao Moen felt that the situation this time was troublesome. Both she and Yi Junqing were trapped in the rear palace, and Yin Nanxing had been captured. The situation was extremely unfavorable for them. No, I only heard that Chancellor fainted in the Imperial Garden and was carried away by Meiji's subordinate, Tainan. Yu reported the information she had gathered. What do we do now? This prince has to go save Yin Nanxing. As fellow disciples, Yi Junqing naturally wouldn't let Yin Nanxing be in danger. Don't worry, Prince. Yin Nanxing is still the martial world's alliance master. No matter how strong the Iron Blood Army is, they can't possibly go against the entire martial world. Furthermore, based on Yin Nanxing's beauty, Meiji probably wouldn't be willing to part with him. Back in Guan Osprey Palace, Yao Moen had felt that Meiji seemed to be hiding something when she looked at Yin Nanxing. Master, what do we do now? Even Alliance Master Yin has been captured, so who else would be able to cooperate with us? Furthermore, we still haven't found a way to break the icicle formation. Yu looked towards Yao Moen worriedly. We can find Han Jini for Yin Shui, but as for the icicle formation, we'll think of another way. Yao Moen was also out of ideas. The Chu Palace's violence room couldn't be compared to Prime Minister Yao's residence. There were hundreds of torture tools of all kinds. At this time, Yin Nanxing had just woken up from his daze when he heard the sound of a blade being sharpened. You're awake? The feminine voice was cold and sinister. Yin Nanxing looked towards the source of the voice and saw Meiji holding a machete and grinding it against a grindstone. Where is this? Why is this servant here? Yin Nanxing struggled against the iron chains, only to find that his body was weak and he couldn't use any strength. Servant? The Grand Martial World's Alliance Master actually calls himself a servant? For the sake of that troublemaker Yao Moen, Alliance Master is truly throwing caution to the wind. Meiji stood up leisurely. She held the machete with one hand while the fingertips of her other hand lightly brushed across the blade. Her movements were smooth and graceful. Ahem. You're Meiji, the last disciple of the Silver Dragon Old Man from the Icy Mountains? Since his identity had been exposed, Yin Nanxing returned to his original voice and his gaze was sharp. Chapter 351. The Yin clan does have some skill. They can guess my identity just from my injuries. Meiji walked to Yin Nanxing with the machete in her hand. You better let me go. Great Chu can't afford to offend Phoenix Feather Manor. Yin Nanxing told the truth. Let you go? Meiji has spent a lot of effort to wait for this day. Do you think I will let you go so easily? Meiji's slender eyes tilted up slightly. She swung the machete in her hand in front of Yin Nanxing's eyes, making them hurt. What do you mean? Yin Nanxing raised his eyebrows and looked at Meiji suspiciously. Alliance leader only knows that I am Meiji, the last disciple of Silver Dragon Elder. But I have another identity. I believe Alliance leader will never think of it. Meiji's voice turned cold and her eyes turned frosty. Another identity? What is it? Yin Nanxing's eyes flashed, but he couldn't avoid the machete in Meiji's hand. Meiji is the only daughter of the richest man in Longxi, Suimo, Su Qinyu. Meiji said these words through gritted teeth. Her eyes became even colder. Suimo. I have some impression. Su Qinyu. Never heard of her. Yin Nanxing didn't realize his situation at all. If it was Bin Lei, he would have squinted his eyes and shouted her name. Never heard of her? Yin Nanxing, you dare say you've never heard of her? Back then, we were betrothed before we were born. This caused a sensation. Qinyu was told by her parents that her future husband was the young master of Phoenix Feather Manor, Yin Nanxing. In order to live up to the title of young madam of Phoenix Feather Manor, Qinyu had to bear a lot of pressure. Now you say you've never heard of her? Meiji shook the machete in excitement, tears pouring out of her eyes. Calm down, calm down. Ahem, betrothed before we were born? I think there was such a thing, but father promised to reject it for me. Yin Nanxing suddenly understood. Meiji's machete had already reached his eyebrows. Meiji wants to ask about this. What right do you have to reject this marriage? How is Meiji not good enough for you, Yin Nanxing? Meiji shouted hoarsely. This hurt her the most. Because of this, she became the biggest joke in Longxi. I was young and frivolous. I didn't want to get married at that time. Yin Nanxing leaned against the torture rack, afraid that the machete in Meiji's hand would cut the bridge of his nose that he was most proud of. Young and frivolous? Good. I'll give you a chance. As long as you promise to marry me within 3 days, I'll let you go. How about it? Meiji looked at Yin Nanxing solemnly as she spoke. That won't do. Yin Nanxing had just refused when the machete was placed on his neck. For Yao Mo Wan? Yin Nanxing, do you believe that this seat can capture Yao Moen here right now and slice off her flesh piece by piece right in front of you? Meiji roared fiercely, the jealousy in her eyes reaching the heavens. Sure. Go now. Don't stand on ceremony. Yin Nanxing's spirits were instantly lifted, and he echoed with great satisfaction, You think this seat wouldn't dare? Meiji only thought that Yin Nanxing would beg her, but she didn't expect him to be so excited. If you dare, go and capture her right now. Yin Nanxing's eyes were filled with anticipation. Are you trying to provoke me? You want Yao Mo Wan to die? Yin Nanxing, you even gave in shui to her. If you say that you don't love her, who would believe you? Meiji didn't think much of it. How did you know it was me who gave her to her? Why didn't you think that she was the one who stole it? Are you going to capture her or not? I'm still waiting to watch a good show. Yin Nanxing was getting a bit impatient. Meiji originally thought that she would be able to see Yin Nanxing's expression of regret, but reality was always far from what she imagined. As he watched Meiji slam the door and leave, Yin Nanxing sank into deep thought. Su Qianyu? Who was it again that night? While Yi Junqing was nagging Yao Moen about Yin Nanxing's matter, Meiji unexpectedly arrived. Didn't you just come during the day? Why are you here again? The speed at which Yao Moan's expression changed truly shocked Yi Junqing. Just a second ago, she had a worried expression, but now her eyes were as clear as a fairy's. You, poor T. Meiji didn't care about Yao Moan's expression. She just sat down at the table and glanced coldly at Yi Junqing. Due to the role he had played, Yi Junqing didn't dare to say anything. He immediately picked up the teapot and poured tea for her. How did Yin Shui become your hidden guard? Meiji drained the tea in one gulp, then looked towards Yao Moan solemnly. What are you talking about? Yao Moan wore that innocent and harmless expression as she looked towards Meiji in confusion. Yi Hongyi believes you because he loves you, so he's blind. Compared to you, Yao Suwan is more trustworthy. This seat won't expose you, but that doesn't mean that this seat doesn't know your background. Yao Moan, you should be glad that this seat was willing to talk to you directly. Meiji's voice was low and cold, and her eyes were like two bottomless pits. Ahem. What did Yin Nanxing say? Yao Moan could sense Meiji's surging anger and knew that if she continued to pretend, she would very likely get beaten up. Thus, she calmly put away the innocent expression on her face. This seat is asking you right now. Meiji slammed the table and roared angrily. I tricked him into coming. Now that I think about it, even the Grand Martial Alliance Master's brain isn't very bright, replied Yao Moan seriously. You really tricked him into coming? Meiji frowned as she doubted Yao Moan's words. What else? Would he be stupid enough to give Yin Shui to Moan? Who doesn't know that Yin Nanxing is stingy to death? Also, what kind of relationship do we have? Yao Moan's words were completely against her will. She still acknowledged Yin Nanxing's generosity. How did you trick him? Meiji's tone eased slightly as she sat back down. As long as Yi Junqing is in my hands, it's impossible to trick him no matter what. Yao Moan didn't get to the point, but her words hit the nail on the head. At the side, Yi Junqing suddenly felt guilty. Perhaps he should treat this senior brother of his a little better. You used Yi Junqing? Don't you like him? Meiji looked towards Yao Moan with interest. This time, she believed her words. Who said that? Everyone in Great Chu knows that he only has Yao Maxin in his heart. If I liked him, wouldn't I be looking for trouble? I don't have any masochistic tendencies. Yao Moan smiled naturally, but her heart was stifled. Then this seat doesn't understand. Since you don't like Yi Junqing, why did you stay in Ji province and willingly become his hostage? Meiji looked towards Yao Moan suspiciously. It's just a small favor. The current situation is so unclear, so Moan should leave a way out for herself, right? Yao Moan sipped her tea leisurely, then personally filled Meiji's cup. A way out. Meiji looked at the woman in front of her again, her heart filled with endless doubt. There's no need to talk about Yi Hongyi. He has Moan in his heart, so no matter when Moan returns, he'll treat Yao like his ancestor. As for Yi Junqing, based on the mutual appreciation he once had with eldest sister and the fact that Moan was willing to stay in Ji province as a hostage, if he can win this battle, even if Moan can't become empress, it won't be a problem for her to keep her life. Meiji felt that Yao Moan's words were true, so she couldn't help but nod. On the other hand, Yi Junqing and Yu Er, who were sitting at the side, were filled with admiration for Yao Moan's ability to spin nonsense. You're quite a schemer. Unfortunately, your wishful thinking probably won't work. Meiji took a sip of tea, a trace of regret appearing in her eyes. Chapter 352. Moan can't tell you the truth in exchange for my life? Yao Moan's eyes were clear as water as she spoke. I can only get an intact corpse. Don't worry, Meiji will definitely act quickly in the future. It won't be too painful for you. Meiji's tone sounded like she was giving Yao Moan a huge favor. Even if Moan isn't on Yi Junqing's side, I still have to die? Yao Moan didn't understand. What reason did she have to die? This matter has nothing to do with Yi Junqing. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, Yi Junqing won't die, but you definitely have to die. This isn't Meiji's intention. It's the captain's orders. Meiji is just following orders. Meiji was shocked inside. How did she get tricked by Yao Moen? Who's a military officer? Yao Moen probed deeply. Just pretend Meiji never came tonight and enjoy the next few days. Remember, Yi Hongyi won't be able to help you. Meiji felt like she'd said too much, so she got up and left without looking back. Since Yin Nanxing hadn't given in shui to Yao Moen, perhaps she still had a chance. Yao Moen only stopped calming down after Meiji left Guan Osprey Palace. Her brows furrowed. Just which bastard is the captain of the Ironblood Corps? Yao Moen angrily sat down on the chair. He seems to have a deep prejudice against Master, commented Yuer. Moen, this prince feels like there's no time to lose. We should contact In Shui and the others. Tomorrow night, we'll break out of the Imperial Palace, said Yi Junqing after a long silence. Just as Yi Junqing finished speaking, a cold wind blew past and a ghostly figure suddenly appeared in front of the three of them. That abnormally pale face in particular caused Yao Moen's hair to stand on end, and she almost fell off her chair. You've come back to life. Yao Moen gritted her teeth when she saw who it was. Prince, it's easy for you to say. The icicle formation is indestructible. If you dare to act rashly, you'll definitely end up in the underworld, said a cold voice. Ice Soul slowly lowered her feet to the ground with a solemn expression. Is there a prince here? When Yao Moen heard Bing Po's words, she forced herself to calm down. She lifted her brows and looked at Bing Po disapprovingly. It's been hard on Prince to risk danger time and time again for Her Majesty's sake. Now, you're even dressing as a woman. You've truly been wronged. Bing Po looked towards Yi Junqing emotionlessly. Ice Soul's words caused Yao Moen's heart to turn cold. She had witnessed Ice Soul's abilities before. Back at Boundless Plains Tavern, Ice Soul had been able to withstand In Shui, rainstorm, and lightning specks without losing in the slightest. Right now, there was only Yi Junqing and Yuer here. If they wanted to subdue him without alerting Meiji and the others, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. They didn't even have the ability to subdue him. Ice Soul has been waiting outside for at least 2 hours. Your Highness, why do you think Ice Soul is hiding from Meiji? Asked Ice Soul. You're not thinking of joining us, are you? There's no reason. Yao Moen made a bold assumption. As long as Prince promises Ice Spirit one thing, Ice Spirit will have a reason. Ice Spirit's intentions were very clear. What is it? Yi Junqing saw that he couldn't hide it anymore, so he just tacitly admitted it. After this matter is done, Ice Soul is willing to follow Prince and achieve success. Once Prince takes control of the country, Ice Soul only asks that Prince can remove Ice Soul from the Iron Blood Army. Ice Soul's conditions weren't harsh, but Yi Junqing was surprised. Why? Yi Junqing hadn't expected Ice Soul to make such a request at all. In Yi Junqing's opinion, anyone who could join the Iron Blood Army should be proud of it. Ice Soul betrayed the Iron Blood Army because the incapable ruler wasn't worth Ice Soul's life. In the future, he will leave the Iron Blood Army because he wants freedom. Ice Soul had once made a life and death contract with the late Emperor. As long as Your Majesty can stamp the Jade Seal on the contract, Ice Soul will be free. Ice Soul had always harbored such thoughts, and now that Yi Hongyi was using his position to avenge a personal grudge, Ice Soul was even more determined to rebel. This prince agrees. But, will you be able to save us? Yi Junqing felt that he had gotten a great deal out of this deal, so he readily agreed. The icicle formation is the #1 formation in the world, so it won't be easy to break it. However, we can find a loophole, and that's the West Gate Life Pass that Meiji guards. Because that pass is personally guarded by the Pass Lord, both its offense and defense are very weak. As long as there's a way to transfer Meiji away, we'll be able to escape. I only managed to sneak in while Meiji wasn't there, said Ice Soul calmly. Transfer Meiji away? Who could do that? Yi Junqing didn't think much of it. Yin Nansheng. Yao Moen's eyes brightened, and her lips curved in a confident smile. The next day, Yao Moen ordered her trusted aide to send the news to In Shui. Ice Soul also gave Yin Nanxing the antidote for the cartilage powder and told Yin Nanxing about Yao Moen's warning. If necessary, sell your body. In response to Yao Moen's warning, Yin Nanxing replied, I'd rather die than submit. In Pure Flower's palace, Yao Sulwan sat at the table and stared unblinkingly at the table. She just couldn't understand why Yao Moen didn't react at all when she saw Yi Junqing getting hacked to death. A single tear, even if it was just a single tear, was enough to prove everything. Second older sister, what are you thinking about? When Yao Moen entered, Yao Sulwan was already lost in her thoughts. There's no reason for you not to cry. Why? Why aren't you reacting? The moment Yao Moen stepped through the palace doors, she saw Yao Sulwan jump up and question her sternly. However, her gaze wasn't looking at Yao Moen. Why would Moen cry? Yao Moen found it funny, so she just replied. Could it be that you don't love Yi Junqing? That you don't care about him? He died right in front of you. Yao Sulwan looked towards Yao Moen absent-mindedly, but her focus wasn't on Yao Moen. If it was Yi Junqing, then Moen would cry. Unfortunately, that person isn't. Although the disguise is very similar, the expression in his eyes isn't right. Yi Junqing's eyes don't have that kind of despicable light. As Yao Moen spoke, she sat down next to Yao Sulwan. That's right. It must be like this. Yao Moen already knew that person was fake, so she wasn't sad. It must be like this. This consort is going to tell His Majesty. Yao Moen? Why are you here? Yao Sulwan snapped out of her daze and saw that Yao Moen had already sat down next to her. I came a long time ago. Moen told second older sister not to go find Yi Hongyi. Yao Moen played with the teacup on the table as she kindly reminded her. You're scared? Yao Sulwan smiled sinisterly. As expected, her mental state was a bit abnormal. Moen was afraid that if His Majesty saw a second older sister like this, he would ask the Heavenly Master to catch the ghost. After not seeing her for a few days, Yao Sulwan's hair was disheveled and her face was dirty. Her complexion was waxy yellow. Her originally bright left eye had turned into a slit, as if a centipede was crawling on it. It made people feel disgusted. Catch the ghost? Impossible. This consort is still extremely beautiful. Oh right, this consort needs to freshen up first. Yao Sulwan got up and staggered into the bedroom. Yao Moen sighed lightly, then followed her in. Just as Yao Moen stepped into the bedroom, she suddenly heard a pong sound. The copper mirror had fallen to the ground, and the shattered pieces reflected Yao Sulwan's ghostly appearance. Who is this? Who is this, Yao Moen, who did you bring? Let her out. Yao Sulwan looked at the copper mirror on the ground in a panic, her eyes filled with shock. Second sister, do you really think that being alive is better than being dead? Do you really think that the person who ruined your life is Moen? That it wasn't you? Wasn't it Yi Hongyi? Yao Moen didn't have any reason to sympathize with her. She only felt that it was laughable that people could deceive themselves to this extent. Chapter 353. Yes, it was you, Yao Moen, who ruined my life. If it wasn't for you, I would be the high and mighty Empress Chu. Because of your appearance, you took away everything that belonged to me. Yao Sulwan shouted herself hoarse. Perhaps it was because she was blind in one eye, but the tears in the other eye flowed especially fiercely. Forget it, Moen believes that in the following days, Yi Hongyi will slowly make you understand just whose fault it is that you have fallen to this state. Regardless of whether you believe it or not, Moen truly hopes that you can survive. If there comes a day when you have a moment of enlightenment, Moen will consider softening your heart a bit. Yao Moen looked at Yao Sulwan, who was on the verge of going crazy, and her lips curved in a relieved smile. Even after Yao Moen left Pure Flower's palace, Yao Sulwan was still confused about who the ugly freak in the mirror was. On the way back, Yao Moen hadn't expected to run into Yi Hongyi. At this time, he should be in the imperial study going through memorials. Your Majesty? Yao Moen jogged over to Yi Hongyi, her clear eyes as clear as water. Just walk slowly. Look at how tired and sweaty you are. Why didn't you bring a palace maid when you came out? What if something happened? Yi Hongyi raised his sleeve to lightly wipe Yao Moen's forehead, his eyes full of heartache. At that time, Yao Moen had never seen such a pure gaze from Yi Hongyi. There was no scheme, no scheming, just simple concern and love. Yao Moen suddenly laughed. What are you laughing about? Seeing Yao Moen laugh, Yi Hongyi couldn't help but purse his lips and grin as well, his eyes bright. Does your majesty think of Wan'er as a child? Wan'er can take care of herself. Wan'er can also take care of your majesty. Yao Mowen's laughter grew more and more unrestrained. She really found it funny that Yi Hongyi actually loved so thoroughly. It was really not bad. The deeper the love, the more painful the wound. Yi Hongyi, remember, Mowen will come back. At that time, Mowen will make you roll on the ground in pain, every pore on your body aching, just like me at that time. Wan'er, accompany Zhen for a walk. Yi Hongyi smiled without saying anything. Then he pulled Yao Mowen's hand and walked towards Seoul Sand Garden. Large swathes of Seoul sand trees had luxuriant branches and leaves, and the flowers bloomed like brocade. As the wind blew, the fallen flowers spun in the air. Occasionally, a few would land on Yao Mowen's snow-white shoulder, adding a bit of charm to the scene. Yi Hongyi lightly caressed the fallen flowers on Yao Mowen's shoulder. Suddenly, he pinched one and lightly tucked it behind Yao Mowen's ear. The pink petals accentuated Yao Mowen's charming and moving figure, causing Yi Hongyi to be practically infatuated. Zhen's Wan'er is so beautiful. Yi Hongyi lightly embraced Yao Mowen, his chin resting on Yao Mowen's hair bun as he sighed with emotion. Your Majesty, you seem to have something on your mind? Yao Mowen raised her head and blinked when she sensed Yi Hongyi's abnormality. Wan'er, don't betray Zhen, all right? Yi Hongyi's words caused Yao Mowen's heart to tremble. Could it be that something had gone wrong? Did the ice spirit go back on her words? Wan'er. Yi Hongyi panicked a bit when he saw Yao Mowen's hesitation. Why would Wan'er betray your majesty? Your majesty treats Wan'er so well. Even if everyone in the world betrayed your majesty, Wan'er still wouldn't. Yao Mowen restrained the panic in her eyes and forced herself to calm down. She felt that her worries were unnecessary. If Ai-Sol wasn't sincere, she should have reported Yi Hongyi's matter to him right then and there instead of appearing to negotiate terms. All right, that's good. Yi Hongyi smiled, his eyes filled with tenderness. He didn't know why he was suddenly so sentimental, but if he didn't see Yao Mowen, he would feel uneasy. It wasn't until they finished dinner that Yi Hongyi reluctantly left Guan Osprey Palace. This allowed Yi Junqing, who had been tense the entire time, to finally sigh in relief. If Yi Hongyi had stayed the night, things would have been difficult to handle. Master, everything's ready. We'll charge out at midnight. Outside, Yin Shui has already invited Han Jini and the 18 hidden guards of Phoenix Feather Manor. Yu Er reported the general situation to Yao Mowen. Did you tell Yin Shui and the others about Azure Dragon? Yao Mowen nodded slightly. Right now, everything was ready except for the final push. She didn't know how effective Yan Nanqing's honey trap would be. Don't worry, Master. Yu Er has already brought Master's words out. No matter who it is, if they can't capture Azure Dragon and bring him to Master, they'll definitely break the tendons in their legs. Yu Er had seen Lu Sha's miserable state. Even if Yao Mowen hadn't ordered her to, she still wouldn't let Azure Dragon go if she had the chance. Vengeful. At this time, Yi Junqing had already changed into his usual attire. As he spoke, he had the flexible sword at his waist. Yao Mowen lifted her brows, but before she could say anything, Yi Junqing added, "This prince likes it." The two of them fell silent. Time slowed down like an old snail. Every second seemed to take a lot of effort. It wasn't until after midnight that Ai-Sol finally appeared in Guan Osprey Palace. Everything's ready? Asked Ai-Sol solemnly as she looked at Yao Mowen and the others. How are things on Meiji's side? Asked Yao Mowen with a nod. Empress, don't worry. When Ai-Sol arrived, Tainan had already called Meiji to the violence room. Right now, the defenses at the West Gate are weak, so it's a good time to charge out. Ai-Sol stopped talking and turned to leave Guan Osprey Palace. Yu Er followed after her while Yi Junqing protected Yao Mowen as they walked at the very back. When Meiji walked into the violence room, Yan Nansheng was in the middle of deep thought. Tainan said you wanted to see this seat? What's wrong? Have you thought through my request? If she hadn't fallen in love, Meiji wouldn't have been so stubborn for so many years. Back when she was told that her future husband was Yan Nansheng, she had secretly gone to Phoenix Feather Manor. 10,000 years passed in a single glance. Ahem. I've pretty much thought it through. Nanqing feels that Miss Qian Yu's 3 requests are really unacceptable. The moment Yin Nanqing spoke, Meiji immediately turned to leave. However, Yin Nanqing called her back. Miss Qian Yu, don't be so anxious. Although Nanqing doesn't agree to those 3 requests, he has thought of a way to compensate you. He wants to discuss it in detail with Mississippi. Yin Nanqing looked towards Meiji seriously. Oh? Then this seat would like to hear how Alliance had plans to compensate this seat. Meiji took a deep breath and slowly turned around with a hint of hope in her eyes. Mrs. First request is for Nanqing to accompany Miss to Longshi's Su family to admit his wrongs. Actually, this request can be changed to being a guest. That way, no one would feel too awkward. How about it? Yin Nanqing lifted his brows and looked towards Meiji suspiciously. Continue. Meiji sighed and crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her gaze gradually turned cold. As for the second request, Miss wants Phoenix Feather Manor to send a betrothal gift and have Miss marry into Phoenix Feather Manor within a month. Actually, based on Nanqing's and Miss's personalities, it's far more suitable for us to be friends than husband and wife. Since we can't be husband and wife, then there's no need to think about the third request, right? Of course, as a friend, Nanqing can still give in to Miss and everything. Yin Nanqing felt that his sophistry was flawless. He couldn't think of any reason for Meiji to refuse. Alliance head is right. So Miss agrees? That's great. Why don't Miss let go of Nanqing, and we can drink to our heart's content? Yin Nanqing suddenly felt that he was a genius. That's why Meiji feels that I was being too polite to Alliance head at that time. Servants, bring this 5 poison powder to this queen. Meiji shouted angrily. She was a young girl, yet he had already said such a thing. Yin Nanqing was going too far. Just as Executioner brought the purple porcelain bottle, Tainan suddenly ran in from outside, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Chapter 354. Your Highness, this is bad. Yi Junqing. Yi Junqing is rushing towards Shimenshang Pass with Yao Moen. This subordinate can't stop them. Tianan's chest ached as he reported weakly. Yi Junqing? You're saying that Yi Junqing is here? Does he have the ability? Meiji's expression turned cold as she looked towards Tainan suspiciously. Besides Yi Junqing, there's also the bandit Han Jini. That's right. There's also Ice Soul. Ice Soul has betrayed the iron-blooded core. This subordinate doesn't recognize the others, but their martial arts are all top-notch. Your Highness, hurry and take a look. They've already broken a hole in the icicle formation. Tianan's face was pale, and he coughed out blood from time to time. Ice Soul actually betrayed the captain. How preposterous. Come back with this seat. At this moment, Meiji had no more time to deal with Yin Nanqing. She suddenly jumped out of the room, but in the next second, Yin Nanqing appeared in front of her. You. How could you? You purposely lured this seat here? A trace of coldness flashed through Meiji's eyes as she looked at the lithe Yin Nanqing. Nanqing's 3 conditions were all sincere. If Miss agrees, Nanqing will definitely do it. How about we go to Longxi now? Yin Nanqing had already used his actions to prove Meiji's guess. Yin Nanqing, can't you be more shameless? Your Highness is deeply in love with you, and is even willing to marry you. Is this how you repay your Highness? If Yi Junqing escapes, your Highness will be punished. If you're a man, then move aside. Tainan gritted his teeth as sparks shot out of his eyes. It's difficult to move aside. If Yi Junqing gets caught, Nanqing's fate will also be terrible. Yin Nanqing shrugged as he looked towards Tainan helplessly. You. Tainan hated Yin Nanqing to the core. It wasn't that no one liked their esteemed lord. Ever since he had followed esteemed lord, Tainan had already given his heart to Meiji. However, this Yin Nanqing didn't know what was good for him and had mercilessly abandoned the goddess in his heart. So, from the beginning to the end, you never thought of marrying Qinyu? Meiji's cold voice was filled with sorrow. Her beautiful eyes sparkled as she looked at Yin Nanqing. Actually, marrying into the Phoenix Feather Manor might not be a good thing. You don't know how strict the rules of the Phoenix Feather Manor are. Before Yin Nanqing could finish speaking, he saw a silver needle flying towards his face, followed by a flash of cold light. Yin Nanxing spun in a circle, and as soon as he landed on the ground, Meiji's attack immediately followed. The two of them clashed, and it was a strange sight. "Your Excellency," Tainan was blocking him. "Hurry up and take a look at the ice cone formation." Tainan panicked and quickly blocked Yin Nanxing's soft sword. Meiji hesitated for a while, then turned around and walked toward Shimin Shengguan. "You won't be able to stop me." Yin Nanxing sized up Tainan, who was charging over. His beautiful peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly. "Even if I die, Tainan won't let you ruin the Honorable One's plans." "Yin Nanxing, has your conscience been fed to a dog? The Honorable One has waited for you for a full 20 years. In these 20 years, have you ever thought about the Honorable One? Have you?" When love rivals met, their eyes were exceptionally red. At this moment, Tianan's every move seemed to be full of energy. However, to Yin Nanxing, Tianan's attacks weren't as lethal as Meiji's. "Of course, I have thought about it. It's just that I just didn't think about it." Yin Nanxing suddenly felt that he shouldn't have rushed to Shimin Shengguan to join in the fun. Doing so might infuriate Meiji. "Yin Nanxing, you beast." Tainan wore a fierce expression as he crazily threw his hidden weapons at Yin Nanxing. Yin Nanxing didn't panic. He just leisurely fought with Tainan. When Meiji arrived at Shimin Shengguan, the ground was covered in frost, and her ice cone formation was almost broken. "Ice Spirit, you actually dared to betray the Master Commandant. Did you anticipate the consequences?" Meiji immediately saw Ice Spirit's figure in the middle of the battle, so she rushed over. "I anticipated it, but I only anticipated it. It's still unknown if it'll actually happen. Ice Spirit knows that he's done his best for the Iron Blood Corps, but Yi Hongyi is abusing his position to take revenge, so Ice Spirit naturally can't allow himself to be trampled on." When the Imperial Edict had reached Guangning, Ice Spirit had already thought of this move. "You know the Master Commandant's methods the best. He won't be lenient when dealing with traitors. Ice Spirit, you'll regret this sooner or later." Meiji's voice contained a trace of sympathy. "Since I dared to do it, Ice Spirit won't regret it." Ice Spirit's expression turned solemn for a moment before it became calm again. At this time, Meiji and Ice Spirit were fighting back and forth happily. On the other side, Yin Shui and the 18 hidden guards were sweeping through everything in their path. Han Jini and Yuer were protecting Yi Junqing and Yao Moen respectively, blocking all the icicles that were shooting towards them. Yuer had already been hit by 3 icicles. Fortunately, Fenglin, Lei Lei, and Lightning Flash had protected her in time. Otherwise, Yuer didn't know how much longer she would have been able to hold on. In an hour's time, other than Ice Soul, who was being held up by Meiji, Yao Mo Wan and the others had all escaped from the Chu Palace. However, as soon as they jumped over the red wall, a rain of arrows came flying over. Yao Mo Wan suddenly saw Qinglong's figure among the crowd and her eyes instantly turned cold. Azure Dragon had clearly underestimated the strength of the people in front of him. In less than 5 minutes, almost all of the Imperial Guards had died. "Take Azure Dragon away," Yao Moen ordered. In Shui, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning all attacked. Azure Dragon was naturally no match for them and was taken away. When Yao Moen saw that Ice Spirit was still in danger, she turned to look at Han Jini. "Yi Junqing, hurry and let go of me. Ice Spirit has forsaken the dark and entered the light. No matter what, Moen can't let him die here." As Yao Moen said this, she moved to push Yi Junqing's arm away. "Why are you looking at this noble one when you're talking to Yi Junqing?" Han Jini lifted her brows with a helpless expression. Thus, under Yao Moen's gaze, Han Jini rushed back to the Imperial Palace. Only when Ice Spirit was brought out did Yao Moen feel at ease. At this time, Yin Nanxing, who had been fighting with Tainan this entire time, calculated the time and felt that it was about time. Thus, he made a feint and left. "Yin Nanxing, I definitely won't let you off." Tainan, who was in a frenzy of fighting, didn't realize at all that he was only able to exchange over 100 blows with Yin Nanxing because Yin Nanxing was avoiding him. The forest was eerily quiet in the middle of the night. When Yao Moen arrived, Azure Dragon was currently surrounded by Yin Shui, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. The 5 pairs of hateful eyes made Azure Dragon feel extremely uncomfortable. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Azure Dragon sat cross-legged in the center with his eyes closed. Even someone as brave as him couldn't endure the torture of being cut into 1,000 pieces. Azure Dragon, this consort respects your loyalty to protect your master. Regardless of whether Yi Hongyi is worth it or not, this loyalty of yours is truly admirable. This consort won't bicker with you over the crime of holding this consort hostage, but Lu Sha's blood cannot be shed in vain. Since you broke the tendons in Lu Sha's legs, this consort will take revenge for Lu Sha right now, in Shui. Yao Moen's expression was solemn and her voice was as cold as a lake. In Shui received the order and drew a cross in the air with her sharp sword. By the time her hand landed, Azure Dragon's legs were already bleeding. Yao Moen, Azure Dragon's death isn't to be regretted, but if you do this, how can you face his majesty? Azure Dragon gritted his teeth and did his best to not make a sound. His forehead was drenched in cold sweat. For martial artists, breaking tendons was equivalent to losing one's life. Azure Dragon knew that he was already a cripple. Why should this consort face Yi Hongyi? How is he worthy of this consort's loyalty? The serene moonlight fell on Yao Moen's face, accentuating her solemn expression. His Majesty bestowed upon you the title of Empress and has placed your safety above tens of thousands of soldiers. This is the grace of the heavens. Azure Dragon clenched his teeth as he enunciated each word firmly. All of you, go over and wait for me. Yao Moen glanced at Yi Junqing. Yi Junqing hesitated for a moment, but when he saw Azure Dragon's bleeding legs, he retreated with Yin Shui and the others. Chapter 355. Heavenly Grace? This consort is only asking you, what did Yao Maxin do wrong? Yao Moen slowly crouched down, her clear eyes flashing with an icy light. That light was like a sharp sword that pierced Azure Dragon's heart. Former Empress. Former Empress is former Empress. You are you? Azure Dragon finally understood why Yao Moen was doing all this. That's easy for you to say. The former Empress you speak of is Yao Moen's, older sister. The only person who treats me well in this world. Azure Dragon, back then when Yi Hongyi had you drag Yao Maxin, who had just given birth to a prince, into the cold palace, did you feel any sympathy? Did you say anything for Yao Maxin? This consort knows that eldest sister once saved your life, said Yao Moen coldly as she stared at Azure Dragon's face. She was testing his bottom line. Azure Dragon cannot disobey imperial orders. Azure Dragon's voice wasn't as unyielding as before. He lowered his head, not daring to look Yao Moen in the eye. This consort is only asking you, did you? Yao Moen's eyes were icy cold. Just one sentence. Azure Dragon felt ashamed when he thought back to that time. Just one sentence and this consort will spare your life today. But remember, if we meet again, this consort definitely won't be lenient. Yao Moen left, leaving Azure Dragon to bury his head humbly in his chest. He regretted it. Perhaps he should have saved Yao Maxin. Even if he lost his life, his heart was still there. Yi Hongyi was furious that the icicle formation had failed. What made him even more furious was that Yi Junqing had taken the woman and his heart away again. Back then, who was it that told us that the icicle formation was unparalleled in the world, and that anyone who dared to charge in would definitely be unable to return? What about now? Aren't those bandits still walking around in your icicle formation? Yi Hongyi roared as he looked towards Meiji furiously. Your Majesty, are you blaming me? Meiji pressed down on Hua Air, her devilish eyes slightly narrowing. Could it be that you're blaming us? Yi Hongyi shouted back. If your Majesty hadn't pressured them, would Ice Soul have betrayed the military officer? If it wasn't for Ice Soul, In Shui and Han Jiani wouldn't have been able to break the icicle formation. As for where the problem lies, your Majesty should know better than this honored one. Since Yi Hongyi no longer believed in her, Meiji didn't want to stay in the imperial palace. Most importantly, Yan Nanxing actually dared to leave without a word. She couldn't accept this. It's your lack of skill. In the end, you still have to blame me. This matter, I will definitely, Your Majesty, feel free to tell the captain. Or you can find some excuse to kill Meiji. At that time, Meiji will also rebel. Let's see who will lose at that time. Meiji was also angry. She swung her sleeve and left. Yi Hongyi's blood surged. His body couldn't help but sway a few times before falling onto the bed. Moen, sorry. We lost you again. Don't worry. No matter what method I use, I will save you. Definitely. Just as Yi Hongyi was feeling vexed, Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise carried Azure Dragon in. This subordinate was useless and wasn't able to stop Yi Junqing. Your Majesty, please punish me. Azure Dragon endured the pain as he knelt on the ground. Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise's hearts ached when they saw this. Who else? Who else was Yi Junqing's accomplice? We will kill them all. Yi Hongyi roared furiously. His sleeve swept across the dragon desk, causing the memorials to fall to the ground. Those people's martial arts were very strong. This subordinate only recognized Ice Soul, said Azure Dragon. Then what about Warner? Is our Warner injured? Yi Hongyi looked towards Azure Dragon anxiously, his voice filled with urgency. Replying, Your Majesty, Her Highness the Empress wasn't injured, but she probably fainted from fright. This was the first time Azure Dragon had lied in front of Yi Hongyi. Although he felt guilty, he didn't regret it, even though he understood that some mistakes were meaningless if they were made up for too late. In order to prevent this matter from alarming the Iron Blood Corps' captain, Yao Moen and the others hurried day and night. Finally, afternoon on the 10th day, they returned to Ji Province. Due to Yao Moen's status, Ben Lei didn't dare to make a grand welcoming ceremony. However, he still arranged a banquet in the guest house's rear garden. The banquet was very lively. Aside from the people close to them, no one else attended. During the banquet, everyone told Liu Sha about how Yao Moen had gotten revenge for Liu Sha, causing Liu Sha to shed tears. After the emotional story was over, only Ben Lei was left to show off. Although Ben Lei's words were always embellished and exaggerated, there was one thing that Yao Moen believed. That was that after the recent battle, Huan Heng's prestige in the military was now second only to Yi Junqing's. He had become an indispensable general. During the banquet, everyone drank happily. Even Yi Junqing didn't notice the flash of loneliness in Yao Moen's eyes. After the banquet ended, Yi Junqing found Yao Moen in the rear garden's pavilion. Why are you here? This prince thought that you'd return to your room. Yi Junqing walked into the pavilion and hesitated for a moment before sitting down next to Yao Moen. What a coincidence! Moen was just about to return to her room. Then this place will be taken advantage of by Prince. When Yao Moen saw Yi Junqing sit down, she got up in a seemingly careless manner, but it was hard to avoid suspicion. This prince. Before Yi Junqing could react, Yao Moen had already walked away. As he looked at Yao Moen's back, Yi Junqing finally said the words he'd been suppressing in his heart. This prince doesn't want to take advantage of you. Can't you come back? When Yao Moen turned a corner, she just happened to bump into Tingyu, who was hiding there. Nyang, why did you come back? Tingyu looked towards Yao Moen with a bit of disappointment. What are you saying? Can't I sleep if I'm tired? Yao Moen understood what Tingyu was referring to. However, time had changed, so it was best for the current her to have less to do with Yi Junqing. Nyang doesn't seem to be tired. Why don't Nyang go admire the moon? Today's moon is especially round. Tingyu urged unwillingly. This consort has traveled day and night for 10 days. The last thing I want to see right now is the moon. Whether it's round or not has nothing to do with this consort. Stop being so long-winded. This consort is tired. Yao Moen didn't allow Tingyu to dissuade her and walked straight into her room. Tingyu had no choice but to follow her in and make Yao Moen's bed. Nyang, the day you were kidnapped by Azure Dragon. His Highness said in front of everyone that if it wasn't for you, there would be no meaning in obtaining the country. Although Tingyu had been in the room that day, she had heard every single word that Yi Junqing had said. Who would take something he said seriously in a moment of desperation? Yao Moen's eyes were slightly startled, but they quickly returned to normal. Based on Prince's nature, since he dared to say that, he must be thinking that way. Tingyu finished laying out the bed and turned to walk towards Yao Moen. If he really thinks that way, then he's really stupid. Even without Moen, this country is still beautiful. Yao Mowen's lips curved bitterly. If it wasn't for Mowen, this country would have been his a long time ago. Nyang Nyang, there are some things this servant really can't help but say. After you were kidnapped, Ji Province and Guangning had another battle. This time, Huan Heng was in full command, and with the help of Zhu Qin's invention of the sky-piercing mouse, our army achieved a great victory. Although this servant feels that Zhu Qin's contributions were greater, those soldiers all praised Huan Heng to the heavens. Right now, there are already rumors that Prince is definitely going to marry Huan Kaier. What should we do now? Tingyu had a worried expression as she sighed. Yi Junqing is definitely going to marry Huan Kaier. Yao Mowen's eyes were deep and her voice was as cold as a still lake. Chapter 356. Nyang Nyang. It's easy for you to let her go, but this servant feels that Prince doesn't have such intentions. Prince's heart is filled with someone else. Tingyu looked towards Yao Mowen meaningfully. This consort knows about eldest sister. Yao Mowen ignored Tingyu and walked towards the bed. Nyang Nyang. This servant. Tingyu was just about to continue nagging when Yao Mowen stopped her. This consort is tired. You can leave first. Yao Mowen felt a headache coming on and subconsciously rubbed her forehead. When Tingyu saw this, she couldn't stay any longer and could only leave silently. The moment the door closed, Yao Mowen suddenly got up and sat under the moonlight for a long time. Her mind instantly cleared up and she walked towards the door. The next day, at daybreak, there was a sudden scream in the quiet Ji Province guest house. After Tingyu's shout, the entire guest house was no longer peaceful. Yao Mowen disappeared? How is that possible? Yi Junqing fastened his belt as he walked out of the room in confusion. It's true. When this servant passed by Nyang Nyang's room earlier, this servant saw that the door wasn't closed, so I went in to take a look. I didn't expect that. This was a letter Nyang Nyang left behind. What should we do? Where did Nyang Nyang go? Tingyu handed the letter to Yi Junqing with tears streaming down her face. This consort left. Don't look for me. Yao Mowen, she couldn't have been captured by Yi Hongyi's people, right? At the side, Bin Lei didn't dare to imagine. Inshui, wind, rain, thunder, lightning. Yi Junqing recognized Yao Mowen's handwriting. Since she had personally written it, there shouldn't have been an accident. However, Yao Mowen had no reason to leave, so he had to save her. At this time, Inshui, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning all arrived in front of Yi Junqing. What exactly happened last night? Where's Yao Mowen? Yi Junqing looked towards everyone with a cold expression. This subordinate was useless and had just woken up. Inshui was also very anxious. Yao Mowen disappeared? Right when everyone was at a loss for what to do, Isol walked out from the room, and she raised her brows as she spoke. As soon as she finished speaking, the gazes of everyone descended onto Isol. Why are you looking at me? If I were the one who took her away, would I still be here? Ice Crystal said innocently. Everyone fell silent. No one knew what to do. But I saw someone sneaking out of the guest house last night, Isol said. Everyone looked at each other and realized that two people were missing from the crowd. Yin Nanxing, that bastard. See if this king doesn't beat him up until he's looking for his teeth on the floor. You guys. The instant he didn't see Yin Nanxing, Yi Junqing came to a realization. Just as he was about to give an order, he saw a red figure limping over. There's no need for you to hit me. I'm already looking for my teeth all over the ground. Yin Nanxing complained incessantly as he walked towards the crowd. He looked extremely miserable. Where's Yao Mowen? Yi Junqing didn't show any sympathy for Yin Nanxing's suffering and directly walked up to him to interrogate him. You only know Yao Mowen. Can't you see that I'm injured? Yin Nanxing felt a chill in his heart. When you accepted a disciple, didn't you talk about the principle of mutual promotion and restraint? Hurry up and tell me, urged Yi Junqing. Han Jini kidnapped her, but Yao Mowen seems to be very willing. She told this alliance to tell you that she'll naturally come back once she's had enough, so don't go looking for her. Yin Nanxing relayed Yao Mowen's words to everyone in the courtyard. She's willing? Is she very familiar with that bandit leader? Look at the situation right now. How could she just leave like that? Yi Junqing glared at Yin Nanxing. What are you glaring at me for? It's not like I said anything. Yin Nanxing felt wronged. Yi Junqing pushed Yin Nanxing aside without saying a word and headed straight for the gate. Where are you going? Yin Nanxing hurriedly chased after him. This prince is going to look for her. Is this a place where she can leave just because she wants to? Who is this prince doing all this for? Yi Junqing was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. I heard that Yaomo Wan, that idiot, got rescued by Yi Hongyi again? Something like that happened? Just as everyone was about to step forward to persuade him, Huan Kaier suddenly walked out of the arched door and looked towards Yi Junqing. Yi Junqing was speechless. He took a deep breath and looked towards Huan Kaier. Yaomo Wan isn't an idiot. She's an idiot. Miss Huan, Prince is really angered by that idiot right now. If there's nothing important, you can go back first. Bin Lei forced a smile and said, that's fine too. If there's anything Kaier can help with, then Bin Lei can just say it. Kaier won't disturb you any longer. Huan Kaier could also see that Yi Junqing's expression wasn't right, so she turned to leave. Once Huan Kaier left, Bin Lei turned back timidly. If looks could kill, then Bin Lei's heart would have been pierced by 10,000 arrows by now. If Yaomo Wan doesn't want to come back, you won't be able to find her. Han Jini is famous for having 3 burrows. I know of more than 20 places that he's staying at, and do you think that Han Jini would stay at a place that I know of? Yin Nanxing lifted his brows as he tried to persuade Yi Junqing. Why would Yaomo Wan want to leave? What did this prince do wrong? Yi Junqing's brows furrowed. He gradually calmed down, but he still didn't understand. When everyone heard this, they all fell silent. Only Ting Yu's eyes darted back and forth as she wiped away her tears. The autumn wind brushed against her face, bringing with it a bit of coolness. The golden leaves glowed brilliantly under the sunlight, causing Yaomo Wan to shield her eyes. This is golden leaf forsythia? Asked Yaomo Wan as she looked at the sudden hint of black amidst the gold. I've never heard of it. This is a golden tree that this noble one designed. Whether it's the trunk or the leaves, they're all made from bare gold. What do you think? Isn't it dazzling? Asked Han Jini proudly. I've never seen honorable lord like gold so much. Yaomo Wan had thought that only King Lulan liked to show off. She hadn't expected that Han Jini would also be an expert. This noble one naturally isn't that vulgar, but there's no place to store gold, so I can't just throw it away, right? I might as well make these things to decorate the scenery. Golden and dazzling. This noble one really is talented. Han Jini was infatuated with himself. The wind picked up and Yaomo Wan felt like she was in a mess. In comparison, she really was very poor. Actually, since Honorable Lord doesn't have a place to store this gold, Imo Wan has a lot of space. Yaomo Wan smiled extremely attentively, even a bit like a lackey. Why didn't you say so earlier? This noble one's gold has all been planted in trees. Han Jini raised his eyebrows with a very regretful expression. It's all right, it's all right. When the gold comes again, Imo Wan will help you share it. Yao Imo Wan vowed solemnly. Her tone was so sincere that it moved people. Moving it around is so troublesome. If the gold comes again, this noble one will plant trees. Stepping on the mutton-fat jade-paved path, the two of them had already walked into the most luxurious of Han Jini's many residences, 10,000 Imperial City. But the trees here are already full? Yaomo Wan was still unwilling. Then we'll plant higher. Han Jini felt that his intelligence was simply unparalleled in the world. At the side, Yaomo Wan suddenly really wanted to poke her eyes blind. If she continued to look, she might very well have evil intentions. However, due to the great disparity in strength, Yaomo Wan could only endure. Chapter 357. However, even someone as patient as Yaomo Wan couldn't endure it. When she saw the forest of palaces in front of her, Yaomo Wan felt for the first time what was called gold and jade splendor, what was called wealth that could rival a country. She saw that the palaces in front of her were all made of pure gold, inlaid with multicolored glass, jadeite, and jade. In any case, whatever was the most precious was stuck on top. Honorable Lord, you've returned? Just as Yao Mo Wan was dazzled by the sight, a 7 or 8-year-old little boy skipped over. Not to mention the boy's appearance, just the glass balls hanging on his body was an eye-opener for Yao Mo Wan. That was no ordinary colored glass. It was a priceless blue light-colored glass. Every single one of them could buy thousands of horses. At this moment, Yao Mo Wan felt that no matter who stood here, they would feel that greed was justified. Baby is so cute. What's his name? Yao Mo Wan raised what she thought was her most brilliant smile and walked over to the little boy. Her hands couldn't help but grab the 2 blue light glass balls on his shoulders. You're the baby. Your whole family is a baby. The little boy was unhappy and fiercely flung his clothes, but he couldn't get rid of Yao Mo Wan's hands. Cough, cough. Don't blame her. She came from a small place and hasn't seen the world. Han Genie coughed lightly. Yao Mo Wan realized that she had lost control and immediately smiled towards Han Genie. Your son is so cute. Yao Mo Wan's words made the little boy and Han Genie's faces instantly filled with black lines. Honorable Lord, where did this wild girl come from? The little boy was angry and his eyes were spitting fire. This is the steward of 10,000 Emperor City. He's over 60 years old and is this honorable's right-hand man. Here, everyone calls him Master Chiao. Han Genie explained solemnly. Yi, grandfather? Yao Mo Wan looked at the immature little boy in front of her and was speechless. Was he trying to defy the heavens? Master Chiao, she's called Yao Mo Wan, the Chu Empress. Prepare the warm jade pavilion and let her live there. Han Genie calmly introduced. Chu Empress? As expected from a small place, inexperienced. Master Chiao glared fiercely at Yao Mo Wan before turning to leave. Don't look down on Grandpa Chiao. With his skills, even Tinin Shuez would be useless. When Han Genie saw that Yao Mo Wan's eyes had been staring at the blue-colored glass on Xiao Ye's body, she felt that it was necessary to remind her. Oh! When Yao Moan heard this, she immediately withered like an eggplant that had been hit by frost. Well, she admitted that she was tempted by the bead on Mr. Chiao. Actually, you just returned to Ji Province. It doesn't seem appropriate for you to run out like this, right? Even now, Han Genie still didn't understand why Yao Moan would beg him to take her away from Ji Province. Don't think about going back on your word. Back then, you were the one who begged Moan to come over as a guest. Now that Moan is here, what about it? You're not willing? Yao Moan deliberately didn't want to think about a certain person's anxious appearance, but Han Genie just had to rub it in. It doesn't matter to me. I can stay here as long as I want. Han Genie shrugged his shoulders with an indifferent look on his face. What are they doing? Yao Moan asked suspiciously when she saw a small group of women dressed in green muslin, holding iron pickaxes in an inelegant manner. Digging for treasures, replied Han Genie indifferently. You guys have buried treasures under here? How much? Yao Moan felt that right now, only money could fill up her empty heart. What treasures? The people under me all view money as dirt. What's more, they're all bandits with integrity. They never need to dig, retorted Han Genie. Cough, cough. Weren't you the one who said digging for treasures earlier? Yao Moan muttered quietly. If they didn't dig for treasures, how easy would it be to snatch them? Digging for treasures is the name of the game. Mr. Chiao came up with it. Mr. Chiao will bury a piece of scrap metal and 50 jade scepters separately. Whoever can dig out the scrap metal wins. The winner will be rewarded with a meal of brown rice. That's why they're fighting to be the first, explained Han Genie patiently. At the side, Yao Moan collapsed when she heard this and started foaming at the mouth. On this side, Yao Moan could be considered to be staying in 10,000 Imperial City. On the other side, Ji Province's guest house wasn't peaceful. Ever since Yao Moan left the guest house, Yi Junqing hadn't been able to eat or drink. It was as if he'd lost weight overnight. Thus, Ting Yu, who knew the inside story, gathered everyone together in private to discuss countermeasures. Ting Yu, you can't speak carelessly. Master isn't that petty of a person. Binlei disapproved of Ting Yu's explanation. Binlei, is there something wrong with your IQ? How could you tell that I was saying that Master was petty? In order to help Huan Kaier and Prince, Master was willing to withdraw. This is called petty? This is called magnanimity. Ting Yu glared at Binlei. If Binlei hadn't pulled the strings, Would Huan Kaier have even been able to stay in the guest house? Could she? Master really did this because of this? At the side, Feng Lin also expressed his doubts. That's why it's said that men are careless. That Huan Kaier would follow Prince around every day and ask about his well-being. From time to time, she would even take advantage of Prince. Forget about Master. Even I feel suffocated when I see her. Yuer felt that Ting Yu's analysis was very reasonable. That's right. Based on Huan Heng's prestige in the military, Huan Kaier has already treated herself as the master of this place. Nyang Yang has always been considerate of Prince. Right now, Prince is in need of manpower. If Huan Kaier can follow Prince, then how could Huan Heng not work hard on the battlefield? The more Ting Yu thought about it, the angrier she got. Compared to Huan Heng, her master had done so much for Yu Junqing. In the end, Huan Kaier had taken over the nest. No one would be willing to accept this. Yet her Nyang Yang had allowed it. Then what do we do now? We can't just chase Huan Kaier out, right? Bin Lei was troubled. Why not? Does Huan residents have no place to stay? She has to squeeze into the guest house. Ting Yu said hatefully. However, her current status was special. If it wasn't for this, she would have gone to find Huan Kaier a long time ago. It's not appropriate to chase her out. With Huan Heng here, Prince has to give Huan Kaier some face no matter what. Yuer's brows were conflicted and her voice was filled with helplessness. Then what do we do now? Are we supposed to just watch as Nyang Yang is wronged? Asked Ting Yu anxiously. Huan Kaier. If Yin Shui remembers correctly, when Huang Fu Juanxiu first entered the Chu Palace, that Huan Kaier seemed to be very interested in Huang Fu Juanxiu. Yin Shui even saw Huan Kaier secretly meeting with Huang Fu Juanxiu, said Yin Shui based on her memory. What can that prove? Feng Lin didn't understand. This means that Huan Kaier doesn't truly like Prince, since she already has someone she likes. If we could have Huang Fu Juanxiu come over as a guest and help the two of them be together, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? Suggested Yuer excitedly, her watery eyes flashing with a brilliant light. That's reasonable. If that Huang Fu Juanxiu could leave Great Chu with Huan Kaier and return to Shu, that would be even better. At that time, Huan Heng wouldn't force Huan Kaier, who already has someone else in her heart, to stay by Prince's side, right? This is a method that satisfies both sides, said Feng Lin in praise. This method isn't bad, but Huang Fu Juanxiu is a Shu official, so why would he come to the guest house in Ji Province? Also, who can guarantee that Huan Kaier's heart is still with Huang Fu Juanxiu? Bin Lei raised his doubts. Then you're watching as Huan Kaier takes Nyang Yang's position and you don't want her, right? Asked Ting Yu unwillingly. Chapter 358. Of course not, I was just asking, mumbled Bin Lei. If we want to do this, we have to get the approval of Chu Ma Bei, the Crown Prince of Shu. However, this person doesn't get along with Master, so he might not be so easy to talk to. If we ask Han Jini, there might be hope, but if Han Jini finds out, Master will definitely find out as well. With Master's personality, he will definitely stop this. Who should write the invitation? Yuer analyzed calmly. If Prince is willing to invite Huang Fu Juanxiu over to stay for 2 days, it's not impossible, suggested Feng Lin. Ting Yu doesn't dare say anything else, but if Prince finds out that Nyang Yang left for this reason, he can kick Huan Kaier out in a matter of minutes. There's no need to waste so much effort. Prince isn't the same as before. There were many times when Ting Yu saw Prince confess to Nyang Yang, but unfortunately, Nyang Yang cut him off. Said Ting Yu confidently. That's not good. If Prince really does this, it will definitely affect Huan Heng's mood in the army. This isn't something Nyang Yang wants to see, said Yuer. Perhaps there's someone who can help, Yin Shui suddenly said, her expression relaxed. Who? Asked Yuer suspiciously. Yin Nansheng. Yin Shui's words enlightened everyone, and they were all happy. In Yao Mowen's opinion, this so-called pavilion was definitely not bigger than a palace. However, after entering the warm jade pavilion, Yao Mowen was completely speechless. It actually took half a cup of tea's time to walk from the main hall to the inner room. She had never seen such a large boudoir before. Master Chiao said you were looking for this sovereign? When Han Jini walked into the warm jade pavilion, Yao Mowen was eating. She saw that there were actually 49 delicacies on the large jadeite table, and each dish was extremely delicious. And, actually, Honorable Lord doesn't need to be so polite with Moen. It's just breakfast. There's no need to be so sumptuous. Yao Moen chewed on the meat in her mouth, the chopsticks, and the bowl was also filled with meat. This was all the meat of top-quality dragon-marked fish. Preposterous. How could Master Qiao dare to use servants' food to trick you? Said Han Genie coldly as he swept his gaze over the food on the table. Isn't Honorable Lord joking with Moen? Yao Moen swallowed the meat in her mouth, her expression extremely shocked. Even Master Qiao has 108 dishes for breakfast. Do you want to listen to this, sovereign? Asked Han Genie solemnly. Yao Moen froze in place. After breakfast, the servants brought tea over. Han Genie took 2 sips and found it tasteless. Yao Moen finally understood why Han Genie had spat out the Longjing tea without any hesitation when he drank it in Guan Osprey Palace. Compared to the tea here, that really couldn't even compare to hogwash. You still haven't said, why are you looking for Bin Zun? Han Genie suddenly thought of something and raised her eyebrows as she looked towards Yao Moen. Can Exalted Lord change Moen to a smaller room? Moen was a bit sleepy after eating dinner last night. I didn't think that I would fall asleep on the floor before I could even enter the bedroom, said Yao Moen tactfully as she put down the teacup. So tired? Han Genie clearly didn't understand Yao Moen's meaning. Ahem. This room is too big. Moen isn't used to it. Yao Moen felt that if she spoke in a roundabout way with Han Genie, she would have to waste more time talking. This is difficult. How about this? I will order people to build another one for you. Han Genie frowned. No need. No need. It's fine as long as it's a smaller one. Yao Moen promptly waved her hands. But this is already the smallest room in 10,000 Emperor City. Even the dog that Bin Zun raises. Han Genie spoke in deadly earnest, but was promptly stopped by Yao Moen. Don't say any more. Moen understands. Even the dog that you raise is bigger than the place I live in. Some words would hurt people if spoken. All right, Bin Zun has to go out for a bit today. Do you want to go together? Asked Han Genie. No. Yao Moen shook her head without the slightest hesitation. Seeing Yao Moen refuse, Han Genie didn't insist and got up to leave. As soon as Han Genie left, Yao Moen impatiently walked out of Warm Heart Pavilion. Facing this dazzling 10,000 Emperor City that was worthy of its name, Yao Moen felt that if she didn't get some benefits, then she would be letting down this trip. Being vulgar was the way of the king, it was the way of the king. Thus, Yao Moen relied on her memory to quickly find that group of girls who had nothing to do all day and only knew how to dig for scrap metal. Hello, girls. Yao Moen greeted them as if she was very familiar with them. Under the enormous golden tree, the group of girls wearing green muslin clothes all stopped what they were doing when they heard the voice and looked towards Yao Moen. You're the guest that Honorable Lord invited back? The girl closest to Yao Moen put down the iron pickaxe in her hand and gracefully walked in front of Yao Moen. That's right, You're called Yao Moen, right? Chu Country's Empress, the one who used that idiotic face to trick Chu King. Another girl in green clothes walked over, her tone not very friendly. Qing Er, speak properly. Without waiting for Yao Moen to open her mouth, the girl beside her already took a step forward. Only later did Yao Moen find out that the girls here were all servants of Han Genie, but they weren't ordinary servants. For example, the 7 girls in front of her were called Hong, Chung, Huang, LV, Qing Er, Lan, and Zi. Every single one of them had a great background. If they weren't the courtesans of a brothel, they were first-rate talented beauties from all over the world. Although they were servants, besides playing, they basically didn't have much work to do because their main task was to warm the bed. Older sister Hong, Qing Er is praising her. These days, not everyone has the ability to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. Hey, Yao Moen, can you teach me? Qing Er twisted her waist and moved closer to Yao Moen's side, blinking her eyes. It can only be understood, but not explained. Although it was Yao Moen's first time here, she didn't need to be polite with them. As the saying goes, a kind person will be bullied, a kind horse will be ridden. The current Yao Moen was no longer the same as before. Even the Yao Machine of the past wasn't someone who could be bullied easily. Moreover, she was still a guest. I like this personality of yours. Do you feel that you have nothing to do? Then come with us to dig for scrap metal? At this time, Zier also walked over and pulled Yao Moen towards the crowd. Everyone, continue. Whoever digs for scrap metal, Master Chow will reward that bowl of brown rice porridge to that person. Qing Er shrugged disinterestedly, then picked up her pickaxe again. This is for you. I'll go ask Master Chow for more. You have to work hard. Zier looked to be only 16 or 17 years old. She had delicate features and was gentle and pleasant. The two dimples that appeared when she smiled were especially nimble and adorable. This made Yao Moen think of Kubujir. Thank you. Yao Moen squeezed out a smile. Instead of digging for a jade scepter, instead of digging for scrap metal, instead of eating delicacies, instead of eating brown rice porridge, she still wanted to work hard? Yao Moen couldn't help but shake her head. It didn't matter if her brain was empty. The important thing was that it couldn't be filled with water. However, Yao Moen really worked hard. In less than 2 hours, she managed to dig up 3 jade scepters. Although these jade scepters weren't worth as much as the blue light-colored glass, if they were left on the ground and not picked up, that would be the same as throwing them away. Adhering to this principle, Yao Moen also put away the jade scepters that the ladies dug up that they didn't want. The game ended very quickly. Looking at the rusty scrap metal in her hands, Yao Moen couldn't help but sigh. It really wasn't easy to find such a strange piece of metal in Myriad Emperor City. Thus, under the envious gazes of all the women, Yao Moen drank a large bowl of brown rice porridge. When she saw those angry gazes, Yao Moen really wanted to get angry. This daddy swears that this thing is even worse than hogwash. Are you sure you want to drink it? She didn't know if that Master Chow was purposely going against Yao Moen. Usually, he only got a bowl of brown rice porridge after he won the game, but this time, he actually prepared a whole pot. Chapter 359. Master Chow's. Just you wait. If Moen doesn't think of a way to rip off your clothes, I swear I'm not a man. After returning to the warm jade pavilion, Yao Moen took out the jade ruyi and counted. There were 30 of them in total. That was about the same as Yao Manifest Store's 10 days of income. Yao Moen's eyes instantly lit up. At this rate, if she stayed in Myriad Imperial City for a month, it would be equivalent to Yao Manifest Store's annual profit. What if it was 10 months? What if it was 20 months? Yao Moen was overwhelmed with emotions. I heard from Master Chow that your dinner was pretty good. Yao Moen was greedily caressing the jade ruyi when Han Jinni walked in without warning. Yao Moen didn't know what to do. You also want to play games? Asked Han Jinni as he looked at the jade ruyi on the table. Where is Honorable Lord looking at? Moen dug these out painstakingly. Don't even think about leaving. When Yao Moen saw Han Jinni staring at the jade ruyi on the table, she immediately declared her ownership. What does this Honorable Lord want them for? Do you like them? There are 1,000 of these in the back mountain. If you like them, feel free to take them. It's just that your taste. Han Jinni was a bit disappointed. Yao Moen cursed inwardly. Fuck. No matter how bad Moen's taste was, it wouldn't be worse than yours. Taking a piece of scrap metal as a treasure. If word got out, people would think that this place was raising a bunch of idiots. Yao Moen concluded that the rarer something was, the more valuable it was, the more reasonable it was. Back to the residence in the Ji province, Yi Junqing was getting thinner by the day. Yin Nanqing's heart ached when he saw this, so when Yin Shui told Yin Nanqing the whole story and begged him to copy Yi Junqing's handwriting on the invitation card, Yin Nanqing agreed without any hesitation. He was even responsible for stealing Yi Junqing's seal and stamping it on the invitation card. On the 10th day after the invitation was sent out, Huang Fu Juanxiu actually arrived at Ji Province guest house. Although Yi Junqing didn't know the purpose of Huang Fu Juanxiu's visit, he still treated him to a banquet. During the banquet, Yi Junqing wasn't in a good mood, so he left halfway and specifically ordered Ben Lei and Fengyu Lei Dian to take good care of Huang Fu Juanxiu. After Yi Junqing left, Ben Lei was about to go up to Huang Fu Juanxiu when Huan Kai'er beat him to it. I didn't expect to be able to meet with Lord Huang Fu. Kai'er is truly fortunate. Huan Kaier, who was dressed to the nines, walked over to Huang Fu Juanxiu with a flushed face. Even though the moonlight was as clear as water, it couldn't hide the bashful look on Huan Kaier's face. Huan Kaier's action caused Tingyu, Yin Shui, and the others to finally sigh in relief. It's Consort Qin? Out of politeness, Huang Fu Juanxiu immediately stood up and raised his wine cup with a smile, allowing Huan Kaier to pour wine for him. Things are different now. Kaier can't be considered a consort anymore. I'm just a daughter of an ordinary family. Huan Kaier then poured herself a cup before clinking it against Huang Fu Juanxiu's and downing it in one gulp. Your Highness has a good tolerance for alcohol. Huang Fu Juanxiu praised her against his will. He really didn't have a good impression of Huan Kaier. Back then, as imperial consort of Great Chu, her conduct was already remarkable. Lord is too kind. Lord isn't going to drink? When Huan Kaier saw that Huang Fu Juanxiu's wine cup was still full, she blinked and looked towards the man in front of her. When she thought back to when she was in Chu Palace, she had already fallen in love with him at first sight. If it wasn't for the benefits of Huan residence, if it wasn't for her status, Huan Kaier would have even considered eloping with this man. Then, after several unforeseen events, just as she was gradually forgetting about this man, he actually reappeared in front of her. Huan Kaier's heart began to stir. Oh, Huang Fu Juanxiu understood and immediately downed the wine in his cup in one gulp. Although Huang Fu Juanxiu had only done it on the surface, everyone could see Huan Kaier's intentions. As a result, after the banquet ended, Yin Shui and the others gathered together again. It seems like there's a chance. Even someone as slow as Bin Lei could see this, so everyone relaxed. Huan Kaier's heart is moved, but Huang Fu Juanxiu seems to be Junwui. Yuer felt that it took two hands to clap. This matter was still very difficult to push forward. As long as Huan Kaier's heart is moved, there's a chance. Let's wait and see. No matter what, Huan Kaier is Huan Heng's daughter, so she's more than enough to be a match for Huang Fu Juanxiu. Tingyu uncharacteristically raised Huan Kaier's status. She's also Great Chu's imperial consort. When a man marries, status is secondary, chastity is the most important. Bin Lei's words instantly caused everyone to glare angrily at him, especially Tingyu. She wanted to stab two holes in Bin Lei's body with her eyes. Bin Lei understood. The master was the Empress of Chu. Yi Junqing raised his cup and drank alone. Thousands of different tastes swirled around his heart, causing him to think. You didn't drink at the banquet just now, and hid here to drink alone. Come, senior brother will accompany you. Yin Nanxing's sudden appearance made Yi Junqing very unhappy. This prince wants to be alone. Yi Junqing clearly had no intention of letting Yin Nanxing sit down. What's there to be alone about? You've already been alone for so many days. Do you miss Yao Moen? Yin Nanxing very insensibly sat down in front of Yi Junqing and took out his own wine cup. Why would this prince miss her? She can just leave without a care, but this prince doesn't feel like it's enough to piss her off. When Yi Junqing heard this, he instantly downed all the wine in his cup. There's no outsider here, so don't try to be brave. I refuse to believe that if you knew where Yao Moen was, you wouldn't go look for her. As Yin Nanxing spoke, the hand he was about to reach for the wine pot was abruptly grabbed by Yi Junqing. You know where Yao Moen is? Take this prince with you. Yi Junqing's reaction made it clear that he didn't mean what he said. Ahem. She can't just throw this mess to this prince and go enjoy leisure by herself, right? This prince want to look for her because, just as Yi Junqing felt like he couldn't continue lying, Yin Nanxing helped him out. If you want to, then just say it. But this alliance master doesn't know where she is. I'm just saying it casually. Yin Nanxing's words caused Yi Junqing to glare coldly at him. You actually really like Yao Moen? Didn't you say that you only have Yao Maxin in your heart? If you're treating Yao Moen as a substitute, this alliance master won't agree to it. Yin Nanxing restrained the ridicule in his eyes and looked towards Yi Junqing seriously. Even if Yao Moen was two-faced and greedy, especially since she had swindled Yin Nanxing out of a lot of money, Yin Nanxing just couldn't bring himself to hate her. Not only that, he even liked her a little. It's precisely because she's Ma Xin's younger sister that this prince has the responsibility to care for her and protect her. Yi Junqing couldn't clear his thoughts. Even he himself wasn't sure about this explanation. Then you can relax. Han Jini definitely wouldn't harm Yao Moen. Also, you're not the only one in this world that wants to protect Yao Moen. Yin Nanxing took the wine pot and poured himself a cup. Now that he met Su Qinyu again, Yin Nanxing realized something. Perhaps Phoenix Feather Manor really did lack a young madam. If Yao Moen was the one, at least she wouldn't swindle his family out of their money, right? Yao Moen naturally has this prince to protect her. She won't let anyone else take care of her. When Yi Junqing saw Yin Nanxing's shifty gaze, he immediately spoke in a cold voice. "TCH, who cares?" Yin Nanxing shrugged. The main character was right in front of him, so he had some self-awareness. Chapter 360. The next day, Huangfu Juanxiu found out from Yin Shui the reason why Yao Moen wasn't at the guest house. Since Huan Kaier had moved in, Yao Moen had moved elsewhere to avoid being exposed. Out of politeness, Huangfu Juanxiu felt that he should greet Yao Moen, but when he thought about how Yao Moen had defiled him, he dispelled the thought. Don't look at how Lord Huangfu is a scholar. His figure is amazing. The 6 muscles in front of his abdomen are really strong. Behind the fake mountain, maid number 1 held her face in admiration. I heard that too, but unfortunately, I didn't make it in time for Lord Huangfu's parade. I really want to take a look. Maid number 2 was also infatuated. Lord Huangfu is also a man of striking appearance, a dashing and elegant man. If anyone could marry a husband like this, their life would truly be perfect. Maid number 3 was already imagining the grand scene of her and Huangfu Juanxiu getting married. You're dreaming. How could Lord Huangfu marry you? In my opinion, our resident's young Miss Huan is intelligent, wise, gentle, and skilled. She is the best match for Lord Huangfu. The first servant girl did not like Huan Kaier, so when she praised Huan Kaier, her expression was very unnatural. To be more precise, none of the servants in the residence liked Huan Kaier. She looked like the mistress of the guest house and was very annoying. Miss Huan? That's right, that's right. They're really a match made in heaven. Servant girl be echoed. On the other side of the fake mountain, Zishuang reflexively looked towards her master. Your Highness. Just as Zishuang was about to speak, Huan Kaier shushed her, then pulled Zishuang back into the room. Your Highness, why did you pull this servant just now? If His Highness hears about this, it could be a big or small matter. You're going to follow His Highness in the future. It wouldn't be good if His Highness suspects that there's something going on between you and Huangfu Juanxiu. Ever since Huan Kaier moved into the guest house, Zishuang had been serving her. However, in order to appear gentle and virtuous, Huan Kaier usually did some things herself and didn't let Zishuang do it for her. Who said this miss has to follow Yi Junqing? Huan Kaier took small steps and sat in front of the dressing table. Her slender fingers gently twirled the black hair in front of her chest. In the bronze mirror, her beautiful face was dyed red. Young miss, this matter can't be joked about. Master is doing everything he can to get you to get close to Yi Junqing. You know what his goal is. Once Yi Junqing succeeds, you'll be the best candidate to be the empress. You couldn't be thinking about Huangfu Juanxiu right now, right? Zishuang saw through Huan Kaier's thoughts and had a bad premonition. Actually, with father's prestige in the army, it doesn't matter even if I don't become the empress. Huan Kaier raised her eyebrows and casually inserted the emerald hairpin from the jewelry box into her hair. In order to please herself, Huan Kaier purposely dressed herself up. Miss, what's so good about Huangfu Juanxiu? At best, he's just a trusted aide of the Crown Prince of Shu. Apart from this, there's nothing about him that can compare to the esteemed prince. If you follow him, you won't be able to find your former glory or even better. Zishuang saw that Huan Kaier was truly moved and immediately tried to dissuade her. Glamorous? That's just like how only a person knows the temperature of water. You should know better than anyone else whether I'm glamorous or not. Zishuang, for the sake of the Huan residents, I've already followed father's lead and entered the palace to become Yi Hongyi's consort. Now, I just want to spend the rest of my life with the person I like. Are you not even willing to fulfill this small wish of mine? Huan Kaier slowly turned around and pulled Zi Shuang with both hands as tears welled up in her eyes. But Zi Shuang was troubled. As long as you don't tell father about me, it'll be considered as helping me. Zi Shuang? Huan Kaier looked towards Zi Shuang pleadingly. Since Miss has already made your decision, Zi Shuang's heart is naturally on Miss's side. However, even if Miss has intentions, that Lord Huangfu might not necessarily have feelings for you, right? As a bystander, she could only see her master's endless affection. He won't. He definitely has Kaier in his heart, he just doesn't show it. Huan Kaier firmly believed this. In the shadows, Yin Shui heard all of this and her eyes lit up. In Myriad Emperor City, Yao Moen would be pleasantly surprised every day. At this moment, she was dumbfounded as she stared at the endless hot spring. Honorable Lord, are you sure this is a hot spring? The hot spring in front of her was located in the rear mountains of Myriad Emperor City. It was situated on one side of the mountain and the other by the water. The scenery was delightful, especially when the warm wind blew from the hot spring. It swept away the coldness of late autumn and made one feel indescribably comfortable. That's right, what about it? Han Genie raised her brows and nodded slightly. This is a bit too big, right? Yao Moen couldn't maintain a calm attitude when facing such a large hot spring, so please allow her to be excited for a few hours. By the time Yao Moen was done being excited, Han Genie had already fallen asleep. Thus, Yao Moen didn't wake Han Genie up. She swam alone in the hot spring until she was completely exhausted and couldn't bear to come out. After living this extravagantly for half a month, Yao Moen thought that she would temporarily forget everything about Ji Province. However, when Yin Shui stood in front of her, Yao Moen finally realized that from the moment she left, her heart had been left in Ji Province, left on that person. Yin Shui? This consort isn't seeing things, right? Yao Moen fiercely rubbed her eyes and looked towards the plainly dressed Yin Shui in disbelief. Subordinate Yin Shui kowtows in salute to master. Yin Shui bowed respectfully, her eyes filled with unconcealable excitement. How did you find me? After confirming that her eyes weren't playing tricks on her, Yao Moen's eyes were filled with astonishment. Master, have you forgotten that this subordinate is a hidden guard of the Yin clan? After not seeing Yao Moen for half a month, Yin Shui really missed her. However, when she saw Yao Moen's ruddy face, she felt that she had wronged Yi Junqing during this period of time. Yin clan? Shouldn't this consort consider exterminating it? At this moment, Han Genie, who was leaning against the door, threw out a sentence that shocked everyone to death. If you dare to exterminate the Yin clan, then this consort will dare to exterminate you. Yao Moen's temper flared up. Yin Shui hadn't expected that Yao Moen would contradict Han Genie like this. Just as she was feeling worried, she saw Han Genie shrug and look towards Yao Moen disapprovingly. What will you use to exterminate this consort? I'll use silver to smash you to death, said Yao Moen fiercely. Speechless, Han Genie lifted his brows, then left with a disdainful expression. Why did Han Genie leave? Asked Yin Shui as she looked towards Yao Moen. He's afraid that this consort will smash him with silver. Even Yao Moen herself found this to be hilarious. Yao Moen was still very happy about Yin Shui's sudden appearance. However, there were some things that she didn't say. Master, are you not planning on returning? Something big has happened in Ji Province. Since Yao Moen didn't ask, Yin Shui could only say it herself. Something happened? That's impossible, right? Although Yao Moen was in 10,000 Imperial City, Han Genie had promised her that if something happened in Ji Province, he would definitely notify her. Not long after your highness left, Huangfu Juanxiu came, said Yin Shui seriously. When Yao Moen heard this, she instantly sighed in relief. She had thought it was something big. What kind of storm can a mere Huangfu Juanxiu stir up? Is Chu Mabe up to something again? Yao Moen finally relaxed. Chapter 361. This subordinate doesn't dare to say for sure. It's just that Huangfu Juanxiu didn't come to find prince or master. He just happened to be interested in Huang Kaier. If Master doesn't return soon, Huang Kaier might be abducted by Huang Fu Juanxiu, said Yin Shui solemnly. Huang Fu Juanxiu? Huang Kaier? You mean that Huang Fu Juanxiu went to Ji province this time for Huang Kaier? Yao Mowen's clear eyes flickered with a strange light as she looked towards Yin Shui in surprise. That's right, replied Yin Shui with a nod. Heh, Yin Shui, even though this consort's life in Myriad Emperor City is a little decadent, this consort's brain is still sharp. The current Huang Kaier isn't worth Huang Fu Juanxiu sacrificing himself. As for Chu Ma Bei, there's even less of a reason for him to spend time on a nobody like Huang Kaier. However, Huang Fu Juanxiu's sudden appearance in Ji province is suspicious. Tell me, what exactly happened? Asked Yao Mowen solemnly as she crossed her legs elegantly and picked up a cup of tea. This subordinate is incompetent. I really don't know. Yin Shui lowered her head in shame. Forget it. Since this consort has already left, there's no need to care too much about the matters there. You should return. This consort will still be staying here for a while. Yao Mowen sighed and took a sip of tea. For some reason, the tea today was especially fragrant. It was probably honey. Master, this subordinate really doesn't feel like this place is that good. Why don't you come back to Ji province with this subordinate? Persuaded Yin Shui earnestly. Cough, cough. Yin Shui, you said you can't see how good this place is? Really? Yao Mowen choked on her tea and coughed violently before looking towards Yin Shui in disbelief. In her opinion, even Lo Lan's imperial palace wouldn't be as luxurious and beautiful as this place. Master, those are just worldly possessions and they're not yours. Also, important things might happen in Ji province at any time, so why bother sticking your nose into other people's business? If it wasn't for the fact that she had followed Yao Mowen for so long, Yin Shui wouldn't even have the concept of money. As a hidden guard, the one thing she had no affinity with was the word extravagance. Take Yin Shui for example. She wore black clothes all year round and her hair was in a bun. She didn't even need the most basic necessities of a woman, let alone other places where she could spend money. Besides life and death, which other things aren't worldly possessions? Which other things aren't other people's business? As for those things outside, it seems like they aren't this consort's. However, you should return first. Remember, you can't tell Yi Junqing that this consort is here, understand? Said Yao Mowen solemnly as she restrained the light in her eyes. Yes. Seeing that Yao Mowen had already made up her mind, Yin Shui didn't insist, so she turned and left. Once Yin Shui left, Yao Mowen slowly put down the teacup and leaned over the table. If Huang Fu Juanxiu and Huang Kaier became a couple, that would really be a heaven-sent marriage. Yao Mowen prayed sincerely. After lunch, Yao Mowen carried her pickaxe as usual. As soon as she entered the golden forest, she saw Qing angrily walking over. Yao Mowen, you sanctimonious hypocrite. Qing was so angry that she kept waving her pickaxe in the air. It was very hard to imagine that when a devastatingly beautiful woman stood in front of you with a pickaxe in her hand, the first thing you would think of was comical and nothing else. At this time, Yao Mowen couldn't help but laugh. Hypocrite? What a high evaluation. Little sister Qing, if you want to praise Mowen, just say it. Mowen can accept any higher evaluation. Yao Mowen didn't mind and continued to walk into the forest with her pickaxe. Today, she swore to dig up 40 jade rui. Who's praising you? Which ear of yours heard that I was praising you? Shouted Qing angrily as she followed behind Yao Mowen. A hypocrite is a true gentleman. Mowen's character has always been very noble, explained Yao Mowen. Big sister, look at her. Qing was speechless and mumbled to Sister Hong. Forget it, let's just play games. Actually, what you said isn't that big of a deal. All the women in Myriad Emperor City belong to Exalted Lord, so what does it matter? Sister Hong's voice was neither loud nor soft, just at a volume that Yao Mowen could hear clearly. Mowen is only a guest. Yao Mowen naturally understood the meaning behind Sister Hong's words and felt the need to clarify herself. Guest? Who would believe that? Last night, Exalted Lord actually called out your name on Qing's bed. This was what Qing cared about the most. Before coming to Myriad Emperor City, She was the top courtesan of the #1 brothel in Zhou. Which man didn't beg and coax her when they saw her? Hearing another woman's name on her own bed was a great humiliation. It can't be. Yao Moen was stunned. Why can't it be? Last night, just as Qing was about to complain, her expression darkened. She pursed her lips and couldn't say a word. This servant kowtows in salute to exalted lord. Seeing Sister Hong and the others respectfully salute, Yao Moen finally reacted. When she looked back, Han Genie was already standing behind her. Looking at that bronze handsome face, Yao Moen suddenly felt awkward. Han Genie called out her name on the bed? That didn't make sense. His sense of beauty had always been problematic. He had already determined that her appearance was ugly. Master Chiao, give Qing enough silver and send her back to Great Zhou's water and sky as one. Han Genie's eyes were calm and his voice was clear and crisp. There wasn't a trace of anger on his face, but he exuded prestige without being angry. No, exalted lord, Qing was wrong. Please leave Qing behind. Qing can't be without you. When Qing heard this, she immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed with all her might. Miss Qing let's go. Master Chiao walked to Qing side and pulled her up with one hand. Exalted lord, give Qing another chance. Qing won't dare again. Seeing Qing tears fall like rain, Yao Moen felt that she should say something about this matter. That, exalted lord, just give her one chance? Yao Moen probed towards Han Genie, but saw that Han Genie didn't even look at her out of the corner of his eyes. At this time, Master Chiao had already pulled Qi around her and directly walked out of the golden forest. When she met Qing's resentful gaze, Yao Moen felt that she was extremely wronged. She felt as if she had been shot even though she was lying down. Exalted lord wants to soak in the hot spring. Do you want to come? Only when Qing disappeared did Han Genie look towards Yao Moen and sincerely invite her. Moen feels that. Yao Moen felt a bit awkward. Soaking in the hot spring was something that could cause one's imagination to run wild, especially what she said just now. If she agreed, it would be hard for others to not misunderstand. But she also sincerely wanted to go. That was a hot spring that was even wider than the sea. Forget it if you don't want to go. Han Genie lost his patience and immediately turned around. Go. I didn't say I wouldn't go. Lead the way. Yao Moen felt that an innocent person would naturally be innocent. Moreover, staying behind might not be welcomed by others, so she walked out of the golden forest with large strides. Only when Yao Moen and Han Genie left did Lu walk in front of Sister Hong. Looks like exalted lord is truly angry. Ever since Lu entered 10,000 Emperor's City, she had never seen a female slave being driven out. Isn't forcing a good woman into prostitution considered too wicked? Yin Shui lifted her brows and countered with a question. Everyone fell silent. After Yin Shui explained the plan to everyone, Feng Lin let out a long sigh. It can't be considered forcing a good woman into prostitution, but Huang Fu Juanxiu has suffered. Feng Lin's tone was full of sympathy. Everyone felt the same way, so they bowed 3 times in advance to Huang Fu Juanxiu. The next day, Huang Fu Juanxiu packed his luggage and was about to bid farewell to Yi Junqing when he was stopped by Bin Lei. It's truly unfortunate that Prince has gone to the barracks and will probably only be back tomorrow morning. Even now, Bin Lei's eyes were still flickering with apology. Tomorrow morning? Huang Fu Juanxiu looked towards the servant behind him awkwardly. If Lord Huang Fu leaves without saying goodbye to Prince will definitely be very disappointed. Also, even if Great Shu has urgent matters, one more day won't make a difference, right? Bin Lei suddenly felt like he was pushing Huang Fu Juanxiu into a pit of fire. Then all right. Huang Fu Juanxiu nodded helplessly and returned to his room. It wasn't until Huang Fu Juanxiu's figure left that Ting Yu and the others came out from the shadows. Act according to the plan. Ting Yu's words caused everyone to disperse. At dinner, Huan Kaier walked into the main hall with too many questions in her heart. However, she didn't see Huang Fu Juanxiu, so her eyes couldn't help but dim a little. "Why isn't Lord Huangfu here?" asked Huan Kaier in a low voice as she swept her gaze over the servant beside her. "This servant heard that Lord Huangfu caught a cold and is currently bedridden," replied the servant respectfully. "Caught a cold? How could he be so careless? Zishuang, let's go take a look." Huan Kaier frowned and walked out of the main hall before Zishuang could react. When they reached the arched door, Zishuang suddenly stepped forward to stop her master. "Miss, if you just go over like this, you'll definitely attract gossip. At the very least, you should at least serve a bowl of ginseng soup so that you have an excuse." Ever since Huangfu Juanxiu arrived in Ji province, Zishuang had seen Huan Kaier's every move. At this moment, she finally believed that her master had already set her mind on this man. "That's fine. Go prepare now. I'll wait for you in my room." Huan Kaier also felt that she was being too impulsive, but she just wanted to see Huangfu Juanxiu and ask him why he had fed all her pastries to those two fat cats in the backyard. About an hour later, Zishuang brought in the ginseng soup. "Miss, are you really going?" asked Zishuang, unwilling to give up. "Don't try to persuade me anymore. No matter what, this miss must make things clear with Huangfu Juanxiu today. As long as he's willing, this miss will go with him." Huan Kaier made up her mind. What if that Huangfu Juanxiu doesn't know what's good for him and isn't willing? As a bystander, Zishuang had seen through Huangfu Juanxiu's heartlessness long ago. Unwilling. Would he be unwilling? "I can't care so much. Give the food box to this miss." Huan Kaier snatched the food box from Zishuang's hands anxiously and walked out of the room. "Don't follow me. I'll go myself." Huan Kaier turned around to stop Zishuang and walked towards Huangfu Juanxiu's room. Zishuang felt that something was wrong when she saw how Huan Kaier was so infatuated with Huangfu Juanxiu. Especially since Huangfu Juanxiu didn't have such intentions, Zishuang felt very uneasy. If something went wrong with this matter, Old Master would definitely skin her alive. When she thought about this, Zishuang didn't choose to follow her and instead turned to run out of the guest house. In the shadows, Tingyu looked towards Yin Shui in confusion. "Zishuang, where did you go?" "She went to find Huan Heng," said Yin Shui in a low voice. "Oh no, if Huan Heng finds out, won't he ruin our plans?" said Tingyu anxiously. "Don't worry, before Huan Heng gets here, they'll already be like lightning from the heavens and fire from the earth. By then, Huan Heng will only see the rice cooked," said Yin Shui confidently. "Are you sure?" Chapter 363. You don't believe me? Let's go. I'll take you to see it. Yin Shui was extremely confident in her ability to concoct medicine, especially after Yi Liu and Yao Sulwan had tried this soft fragrance pill. The effects were truly amazing. Meanwhile, when Huan Kaier entered Huangfu Juanxiu's room with the lunchbox, she saw Huangfu Juanxiu sitting at the table, carefully reading a book. He was so quiet and beautiful, like he was a character in a painting. He had an ethereal bearing that made her yearn for him. Kaier heard that Sir Huangfu caught a cold. "I didn't expect Sir to be so diligent and still read when you're sick. Why don't you lie down on the bed?" Due to the presence of the servants, Huan Kaier could only suppress the envy in her heart and walk leisurely to the table. "Cold? When did he catch a cold?" Huangfu Juanxiu couldn't help choking and chuckling awkwardly. "This is the ginseng soup that Kaier ordered the kitchen to make. Sir, drink it while it's hot. It's good for your body." As Huan Kaier spoke, she placed the food box on the table and took out a porcelain bowl. When she looked towards Huangfu Juanxiu, her eyes were filled with affection. Consort Chen is considerate. Huangfu Juanxiu had intentionally called her Consort Chen to remind her of her identity, but he hadn't expected that this would stir up the endless sorrow in Huan Kaier's heart. "Juanxiu." Seeing the misty look in Huan Kaier's eyes, Huangfu Juanxiu immediately told the servants to leave. Perhaps he should tell Huan Kaier that he really didn't have any intentions towards her. However, Huangfu Juanxiu's actions delighted Huan Kaier. If he didn't have intentions, why would he send the servants away? Thus, the moment the servants left, Huan Kaier turned around and closed the door. "Why did you close the door?" Huang Fu Juanxiu's eyes were filled with fear as he instinctively took a few steps back and crossed his arms in front of his chest. His expression was that of a young woman being forced to become a prostitute. Drink the ginseng soup first. Kyer especially had Zishuang add some herbs in it. It's very good for Sir's body. Huan Kyer wasn't in a hurry and immediately scooped the ginseng soup into a porcelain bowl for Huang Fu Juanxiu. Actually, Consort Shin doesn't need to be like this. Juanxiu didn't even. Huang Fu Juanxiu decided to be decisive. If he didn't make a decision, he would only end up in a mess. Huang Fu Juanxiu decided to put his words out in the open with Huan Kyer. Sir, can't you talk after drinking the soup? Huan Kyer looked towards Huang Fu Juanxiu shyly with her watery eyes. Even though Huang Fu Juanxiu didn't have any other thoughts, he couldn't bear to reject Huan Kyer's good intentions. Thus, a bowl of ginseng soup went down his stomach. Sir, what kind of incense is burning on the table? It tastes pretty good. Huan Kyer walked around to the table, her slender fingers stroking the books on the table, her beautiful eyes filled with tenderness. Juanxiu doesn't know. It was the servants in the Fu who changed them. Your Highness Consort Shin, there's something that Juanxiu feels he needs to make clear to your Highness. Huang Fu Juanxiu cleared his throat and looked towards Huan Kyer with a solemn expression. Coincidentally, Kyer also has something to say to Sir. Huan Kyer sniffed the faint fragrance and her eyes became even more dreamy. Actually, Juanxiu only has respect for your Highness and doesn't have any admiration. So, before Huang Fu Juanxiu could finish speaking, he felt his body heat up and his forehead felt like it was being assaulted by waves, making it impossible for him to think calmly. Kyer is the same as Sir. From the first time we met, I've admired Sir to the extreme. Now that we meet again, it's a heaven-sent opportunity. Kyer no longer has the status of Consort Chun, so as long as Sir agrees, Kyer is willing to serve Sir for the rest of her life. As the fragrance entered her lungs, Huan Kyer's consciousness gradually became hazy. Coupled with the fact that she had long since wanted to devote herself to him, she impatiently threw herself into Huang Fu Juanxiu's arms. It's not the same. How can it be the same? Juanxiu, too. Huang Fu Juanxiu was still a hot-blooded man. So how could he not be flustered under the influence of Yin Shui's soft fragrance pill? Whatever Sir wants to do to Kyer, then let's do it. Huan Kyer tugged at her collar, revealing her snow-white neck to Huang Fu Juanxiu. At this moment, all explanations were useless in Huang Fu Juanxiu's eyes. Eating to his heart's content was the right thing to do. Thus, Huang Fu Juanxiu helped Huan Kyer take off her robes, clothes, undergarments, until there wasn't a single stitch left. The bed creaked noisily. This proved that Huang Fu Juanxiu's strong body could withstand the test. The woman on the bed screamed louder and louder, and her screams spread in all directions, throwing all the men in the guest house into disarray. Just as Huang Fu Juanxiu and Huan Kyer were entangled in a frenzy, Yao Moen had a dream as she lay on the table. She dreamt that Huan Kyer actually disliked Yi Junqing, so she laughed. Her laughter was so unrestrained that Han Genie, who had been sitting at the table for a long time, couldn't help but laugh. Are you still going to eat supper or not? Han Genie felt that if Yao Moen just slept like this and didn't talk, she would still be pleasing to the eyes. Why are you here? Yao Mo Wan, who had her sweet dream disturbed, rubbed her eyes and looked towards Han Genie, who had a displeased expression as she asked curiously. Master Qiao said that you wanted supper, so this honorable lord brought it to you on the way. Han Genie's words were logical, but in reality, the Wanshou palace that he lived in was worlds apart from the warm jade pavilion. At this time, Han Genie had already pushed the disc with 10 rubies in front of Yao Moen. How could Moen be so shameless to trouble honorable lord to come? Yao Moen didn't care. In reality, she didn't care. 10,000 Emperor City was just too big. So big that she felt that the only reason she could remember the way from Warm Jade Pavilion to the Golden Forest was because of the Jade Ruyi. That's not a pastry. The pastry is inside. When Han Genie saw Yao Moen pick at the rubies on the edge of the porcelain disc, he reminded her out of goodwill. Yao Moen was speechless. 3 black lines appeared on her forehead. No matter how poor she was, She shouldn't be unable to tell the difference between a pastry and a gem. What do you think of this honorable one's 10,000 Emperor city? In Hanjini's eyes, those gems were no different from scrap metal, so he naturally couldn't guess that Yao Moen actually wanted to take those gems for herself. Good, Yao Moen said concisely. Aren't you being too stingy with words? Tell me specifically what's good. Hanjini was unhappy. He had sat for so long, but he didn't just want the word good. There's a lot of specifics. Moen, let's start from the city gate. Good jade is slightly flawed, but the jade you spread on the ground is flawless. The bare feet of the golden tree, the hot spring that's as vast as the sea, the fake mountain piled up with jade rui, the tray embedded with gems, and when talking about the good of 10,000 Emperor City, Yao Moen felt that 6 hours was definitely not enough. All right, this honorable one doesn't want to hear these things. What about the people of 10,000 Emperor City? How are they? Han Genie guided her very patiently. People? Yao Moen pretended to smile, but she didn't think much of it in her heart. Say it. Han Genie urged. Of course the people are good. They have arms and legs, their limbs are healthy, and they're also very strong. Good. Yao Moen felt that there wasn't much to say. She wasn't familiar with red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, and purple, and she also caused Qing Air to be driven away for no reason. As for Lord Xiao, even now, Yao Moen's face was still very vague because Yao Moen only remembered that body of sparkling colored glass balls. Forget it. What do you think of this honorable one? Han Genie felt that if they continued to beat around the bush like this, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to ask anything until the next day. Good. Yao Moen nodded without the slightest hesitation, but in her heart, she was scolding herself for having no moral integrity. If this person in front of her was a good person, then there wouldn't be any bad people in this world. However, Yao Moen really had no other choice. Only good? Han Genie asked unwillingly. Chapter 365. About this. Just as Yi Junqing was feeling like this matter was getting tricky, Huan Kaier rushed in front of Huang Fu Juanxiu and looked straight at Huan Heng. This matter has nothing to do with Juanxiu. It was Kaier who envied Juanxiu's talent, so she devoted herself to him. If father insists on blaming Juanxiu, then kill your daughter as well. Even if I have to go to hell, your daughter wants to be a ghost couple with Juanxiu, said Huan Kaier with a resolute gaze. Behind him, Huang Fu Juanxiu screamed in his heart, I don't want to help. Shut up. Zishuang, bring young miss out. Huan Heng hadn't expected his daughter to be so protective of Huang Fu Juanxiu. He immediately felt embarrassed and ordered Zishuang to drag her out. Don't come over. Father, your daughter is serious. Just as Zishuang was about to step forward, Huan Kaier took out a dagger from somewhere and placed it against her own neck, her eyes filled with determination. Kai, you're simply possessed. Put the dagger down. Huan Heng's heart ached for his daughter, and he stomped his feet in anger. At the side, Yi Junqing, who hadn't spoken for a long time, coughed twice before looking towards Huan Heng. In this prince's opinion, since Miss Kai has such intentions towards Lord Huang Fu, why don't we help her achieve her goal? What does old general think? First of all, he could protect Huang Fu Juanxiu. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how to explain this to Great Shu. Second of all, he would be able to escort Huan Kaier out of the guest house, which would make things much easier for him. How can this be? Huan Heng was still unwilling. Just as he was about to retort, the dagger in Huan Kaier's hand was already stained with blood. Father. Daughter has never begged father for anything in her life. This time, daughter begs you to help daughter. Huan Kaier's tears fell like rain as she knelt on the ground. When Huan Kaier knelt down, Huang Fu Juanxiu, who was behind her, stood out. Thus, Zishuang walked behind Huang Fu Juanxiu without hesitation and kicked his knee hard. Heavens! What was going on? He did not want to marry her. Did anyone hear his inner voice? Huang Fu Juanxiu looked even more heartbroken than Huan Kaier. You, all of you are truly infuriating this old man. Huan Heng stomped his feet angrily and sat down on a chair. Father, I'm not young anymore. Don't you want me to live the rest of my life happily? In this life, only by following Juanxiu will your daughter be happy. Huan Kaier saw that Huan Heng's expression had softened, so she immediately increased her strength and tears gushed out of her eyes. Juanxiu, say something. Huan Kaier tugged at Huangfu Juanxiu, who was kneeling behind her, and urged him in a low voice. I want to become a monk. Huangfu Juanxiu had never been so serious before. What did he say? Huan Heng roared in disbelief. He said he wanted to marry his daughter, and he swore that he would treat her well, translated Huan Kaier. Huangfu Juanxiu almost collapsed. What kind of ears were these? He said he wanted to become a monk. In the end, when Huan Heng saw that there was nothing he could do to reverse the situation, he decided to fulfill his daughter's wish and acknowledge Huangfu Juanxiu as his son-in-law. However, there was one condition, which was that the wedding would take place the next day. Everyone was happy with this result, and everyone was satisfied, but there was one person who suffered. Ever since they left the main hall, everyone in the guest house started to get busy. Only Huangfu Juanxiu remained in his room. Inshui was afraid that Huangfu Juanxiu would take things too hard, so she had Feng Lin keep an eye on him. Later, she heard from Feng Lin that Huangfu Juanxiu had tried to slit his wrists several times to commit suicide, but in the end, he didn't do it. The wedding was exceptionally lively. Although Huan Heng was unwilling, when he saw how happy his daughter was, he was relieved. Huangfu Juanxiu was in Ji province and didn't have any helpers, so he could only wait to be trampled on. The joyous wedding solved everyone's problems. It wasn't until Huangfu Juanxiu left Ji province with Huan Kaier with a worried expression that Inshui revealed Yao Mowen's whereabouts to Yin Nanxing. Yin Nanxing found out that this matter had led to Yi Junqing appearing in Myriad Emperor City. As for why Han Jini would let Yi Junqing in, it was all thanks to Yin Nanxing's flowery words. In reality, it wasn't that Han Jini didn't know at all. It was just that Han Jini had never been willing to force things. If Yao Mowen wanted to leave, he wouldn't have stopped her. I didn't think that you'd have such a hard time here. When Yi Junqing appeared in front of Yao Mowen, she was currently digging the ground with her pickaxe. Yi Junqing? Yao Mowen lifted her eyes to see Yi Junqing standing in front of her. After a moment of hesitation, Yao Mowen abruptly reached out and pinched Yi Junqing's arm. It hurts. What are you doing? Yi Junqing's eyes were filled with tenderness, but they instantly turned into endless resentment. I'm really not dreaming. Yi Junqing, how did you get here? Only after Yi Junqing let out a miserable cry did Yao Mowen believe that the person in front of her was real and not an illusion. Yao Mowen, did you touch this prince just to confirm that you weren't dreaming? Yi Junqing was enraged. He hadn't eaten or drunk anything for 2 days and 1 night to get here. I only used my hands, not my feet. Prince, don't accuse Mowen unjustly. Yao Mowen didn't care. She picked up the pickaxe and continued to dig. In addition, she seemed to be working even harder than before because she felt that her jade rui might have reached the end. Did you think that this prince came all the way here just to accuse you? Yao Mowen, what are you digging for? Yi Junqing was very angry, but when he saw Yao Mowen's strange actions, he decided not to bicker with her for now. It's a jade rui. Prince, you don't know, but Honorable Lord really is very rich. Yao Mowen felt that the word rich wasn't enough to express her admiration for Han Jini. So? Yi Junqing didn't like hearing this. So what if he was rich? So Mowen felt that it would be a waste not to take them. When Yi Junqing saw Yao Mowen's 2 sparkling jade rui flashing in her dark eyes, he knew that Yao Mowen had been badly poisoned. You took all of these for free? Yi Junqing didn't care. Actually, it wasn't for free. Mowen put in a lot of effort. Yao Mowen immediately wiped at her sweat. There's one matter that pained this prince. Yi Junqing returned to the main topic. Say it for me to hear. Yao Mowen choked on the words make me happy too. She was about to say, Huangfu Juanxiu, that bastard, actually married great General Huan Heng's daughter. Yi Junqing was indignant. Yao Mowen froze slightly when she heard this. The pickaxe in her hand paused for a moment before continuing to dig. It really is a pity otherwise, said Yao Moen indifferently. Otherwise this prince was planning on marrying her off to Bin Lei. You also know that good things shouldn't flow to outsiders. Now, that brat Huangfu Juanxiu has profited for nothing. Yi Junqing really had thought of this. That's truly heart-wrenching. Yao Moen smiled, the curve of her lips deepening. Right at this time, the pickaxe hit an obstacle. Yao Moen immediately threw the pickaxe away and bent down to retrieve the jade ruby from the hole. Then she stood up and laughed heartily. It seemed like she hadn't laughed like this in a long time. You like this thing? As Yi Junqing listened to Yao Moen's carefree laughter and looked at Yao Moen's soul-stirring smile, a strange feeling welled up in his heart. This time, he could truly feel it. Actually, from the start, he had never considered that Yao Moen was someone else's substitute. With her black-bellied personality, if it weren't for the fact that they were right in front of them, no one would believe that she was Ma Xin's younger sister. I like it. I really like it. Yao Moen laughed so hard that she was crying. Yi Junqing didn't say anything. Then he picked up the pickaxe that Yao Moen had thrown to the ground and started digging. Chapter 366. Thus, when Han Jini and Yin Nansheng came back from drinking, they saw Yao Moen and Yi Junqing happily digging in the golden forest. Yao Moen's decision to leave was within Han Jini's expectations. Although he didn't urge her to stay, he still felt a bit uncomfortable. Firstly, he really couldn't bear to part with Yao Moen. Secondly, Yao Moen had actually gone to move that Mount Rui in the back garden. If it wasn't for the fact that Han Jini had exchanged the jade Rui for banknotes, everyone really suspected that Yao Moen would have been crushed to death by the jade Rui. Of course, there was another person who felt uncomfortable besides Han Jini. The wheels of the carriage rolled forward, leaving 2 faint marks on the ground. Inside the carriage, Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen with a serious expression. This prince feels that you should never go to 10,000 Imperial City ever again, said Yi Junqing solemnly. 75, 76, 77? Why? Asked Yao Moen in her free time. If Master Qiao sees you again, it's very likely that he'll tear you to pieces. Yi Junqing firmed his resolve as he looked at the clothes made of blue glass in Yao Moen's hands. It's worth it even if he's torn to pieces. Prince, look, this is blue glass. This small piece can be exchanged for 1,000 warhorses. Where have I counted to? Aya, start counting again. 1, 2, 3. Yi Junqing didn't dare to speak anymore. This was already the 10th time Yao Moen had counted. After Yao Moen returned to the guest house, Bin Lei prepared a grand welcoming banquet as usual. Because Huan Kaier had left, everyone was very relaxed during the banquet. That night, Yao Moen sat alone in the pavilion, leaning against the railing. Her fingers were wrapped around her knees as she looked up at the starry sky. What are you thinking about? Yi Junqing had learned his lesson from last time and spoke his mind directly. He didn't ask useless questions like why she hadn't slept yet. Ever since the last battle, there hasn't been any movement from Guangning for almost a month. Moen feels that there's definitely something fishy going on. Yao Moen turned to look towards Yi Junqing with a hint of worry in her eyes. Before they can think of a way to deal with the sky-piercing rat, they wouldn't dare to rashly send out troops. Also, Guangning's secret agents have reported that the Ice Soul Corps has pledged allegiance to us, but the Iron Blood Corps still hasn't sent any reinforcements. This could also be one of the reasons. Yi Junqing slowly walked in front of Yao Moen and analyzed calmly. Iron Blood Corps. Ice Soul Corps is fine. Yao Moen seemed to have thought of something and looked towards Yi Junqing. Don't worry, the Ice Soul has been hanging out with Zhu Chun these past few days. Their relationship is very harmonious. When he saw the worry in Yao Moen's eyes, he decided to keep the words that he had been preparing for a long time to the bottom of his heart. Now that he hadn't succeeded yet, perhaps he shouldn't think too much about it. The Iron Blood Army is not to be trifled with. No matter what, the Ice Spirit's safety is the most important. Yi Junqing knew very well what Yao Moen was trying to say. If they couldn't protect Ice Soul, then no one would dare to betray them in the future. This prince will arrange everything. Yi Junqing nodded slightly. The late autumn wind was a bit chilly, so Yao Moen couldn't help but sneeze. Yi Junqing saw this and immediately took off his cloak. Just as he was about to get up, he saw that Yao Moen was looking towards him in shock as if she had seen a ghost. Prince can't be thinking of putting it on Moen, right? Yi Junqing felt that this question didn't make sense. There were only the two of them in the pavilion. Who else would be putting it on besides her? At this moment, a cold wind blew past. That's right. What's wrong? Yi Junqing didn't think much of it. When did Prince start treating Moen so well? You couldn't have fallen in love with Moen, right? Yao Moen's smile was vulgar, but in reality, she was advancing in order to retreat. With her wisdom, she had already seen through Yi Junqing to the bone. Who likes you? Yi Junqing refused to admit it, but his heart was pounding like a little deer. You really don't like me? Yao Moen deliberately lifted her brows as she looked towards Yi Junqing suspiciously. Her gaze made Yi Junqing's face burn uncomfortably, as if he wasn't wearing any clothes. What reason does this prince have to like you? You're two-faced and greedy. You don't forgive people when you're in the right, and you defend yourself when you're in the wrong. You're a dictator and a dictator. When you don't want to listen, no one can speak. But when you want to listen, no one can shut up. What do you want to do? Yi Junqing continuously criticized Yao Moen. It wasn't until Yao Moen gracefully walked in front of him that Yi Junqing came to a realization. Heavens! How could he have forgotten that in this day and age, telling the truth was like getting struck by lightning? It seems that Moen really should reflect on herself. Prince, rest here. Moen will take her leave first. Yao Moen gave Yi Junqing an evil smile, then walked around him and walked down the pavilion. Only when Yao Moen's figure disappeared from the rear garden did Yi Junqing dare to turn around. His expression was filled with regret. He really wanted to tell Yao Moen that he was sincerely praising her. The next day, when Juchen found out that Yao Moen had returned to the residence, he eagerly came to visit. Why didn't you come with Mingyu? Yao Moen felt that leaving Ju Chun by Yi Junqing's side was the best move she had made. Mingyu is still tidying up at home. She'll be here soon, said Ju Chun respectfully. I heard from Prince that you get along very well with Isol. Yao Moen took the tea that Tingyu handed over and took a sip. That's really good to the point of speechlessness. Ju Chun didn't say much, but every word he said was to cater to Yao Moen. Ju Chun, you came to find this consort because you have something to discuss, right? Yao Moen's brows furrowed slightly, but she quickly recovered. Ju Chun does have some matters to discuss with Prince. There isn't enough saltpeter to make the sky-piercing rat, so Ju Chun would like to ask Prince to allocate some more, said Ju Chun honestly. Why are you looking for Prince for such a small matter? Just Bin Lei would be fine, muttered Tingyu quietly. Since you have matters to attend to, then go. Yao Moen's eyes flashed, then she waved her hand to dismiss Ju Chun. Yao Moen only looked towards Tingyu after Ju Chun had left. While this consort wasn't around, Ju Chun and Prince's relationship seemed to have become much better, said Yao Moen carelessly. About that, this servant didn't notice. These days, Tingyu had been focusing all her attention on Huan Kaier and Huang Fuju and Xiao, so she naturally didn't pay much attention to other people. Right at this moment, Mingyu suddenly walked in. This servant Mingyu kowtows in salute to your highness. Mingyu, who was dressed in plain clothes, immediately bowed respectfully towards Yao Moen. You're already someone's wife, so why are you still calling yourself a servant? Tingyu, hurry and help Mingyu up. Yao Moen smiled sweetly, her expression gentle. If it wasn't for your highness saving my life several times, Mingyu definitely wouldn't be able to live so peacefully. No matter where Mingyu is, I'll always be your highness' servant. Mingyu was truly grateful towards Yao Moen. Look at you. The more you speak, the more courteous you become. In the future, there's no need to be so reserved when you see this consort. Ju Chun even said that you specially dressed up to see this consort, but there's actually no need. Yao Moen knew that Mingyu was a reasonable person who remembered kindness, so she was very pleased. Chapter 367. Ju Chun? Your Highness saw Ju Chun? Mingyu looked towards Yao Moen suspiciously. That's right, he just left. It's only been a few minutes, said Yao Moen with a smile. That's impossible. When this servant came, Ju Chun and Ice Soul were still researching their new invention. How could your Highness have seen him? Mingyu looked towards Yao Moen in disbelief. Yao Moen's heart suddenly trembled. She was overwhelmed with shock when she heard this and immediately asked Mingyu, Are you sure that Ju Chun didn't come to the guest house? This servant passed by Phoenix Mountain on my way here. Ju Chun personally told this servant that he would come later, so how could he have arrived earlier than this servant? Said Mingyu firmly. Oh no. In Shui, hurry and protect Prince. Yao Moen's gaze turned cold as she summoned In Shui. In Shui knew that the situation was bad and immediately flew towards the study. Your Highness, that Ju Chun was fake? Tingyu found this inconceivable. She couldn't see anything wrong with the previous Ju Chun. Go find Bin Lei and the others to help In Shui. Mingyu, come with this consort to the study. Yao Moen ordered calmly before leaving the main hall with Mingyu. By the time Yao Moen arrived, the entrance to the study was already in chaos. Ju Chun was surrounded by wind, rain, thunder, and lightning while In Shui was also in the middle of the battle. Moen, are you all right? When Yi Junqing saw that it was Yao Moen, he immediately walked over and asked worriedly, Moen is fine, this Ju Chun is fake. Even if Yao Moen didn't say it, Yi Junqing could guess. He had never seen Ju Chun smile at him so naturally before. If it wasn't for this, Yi Junqing probably wouldn't have been able to dodge Ju Chun's hidden weapons. Even though he was surrounded by In Shui and the others, Ju Chun didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. At this time, Bin Lei had already rushed over with the guards. When Ju Chun saw this, he took something out of his sleeve. There was a flash of light, and by the time everyone opened their eyes again, Ju Chun was already gone. In Shui and the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning combined couldn't do anything to him. Just who is this person? Yao Moen furrowed her brows as her thoughts spun. Yi Junqing also sank into thought. After a moment, the two of them looked at each other in dismay and said in unison, Iron-blooded army. Oh no, In Shui, quickly bring people to Phoenix Mountain. Yao Moen came to a sudden realization and hurriedly gave instructions to In Shui. In Shui and the others obeyed and left. Yao Moen and Yi Junqing also left the guest house and hurried towards Phoenix Mountain. After a series of landslides, the Ice Soul was finally convinced. Even though everything that Ju Chun had invented was based on his black ball, the Ice Soul had to admit that even if he thought about it for 30 years, he still might not be able to invent this shockingly powerful, sky-piercing pillar. Success. Ju Chun patted the dust off his hands and exhaled deeply. Brother Juechen's heaven-piercing pillar is indeed powerful. Ice Soul is impressed. Ice Soul cupped his fists, his gaze sincere and friendly. Brother Ice Soul, you must be joking. You are the originator of these things. Ju Chun spoke modestly, but he was praying in his heart. If you want to pay with your life, look for me. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. Even so, Brother Juechen has surpassed his master. Ice Soul praised sincerely. At this time, Yi Junqing suddenly appeared in their line of sight. Your Highness? Why have you come? Ju Chun knew that he was acting crazy. Every time he saw Yi Junqing, his entire body would tremble. In the past, he really had been afraid, but now, it was just a conditioned reflex. I heard that you and Ice Soul developed a new weapon to deal with enemies? Yi Junqing's expression was calm as he glanced towards Ice Soul. Your Highness has come at the right time. This subordinate has just succeeded in his experiments, so the blueprints will be sent back to Mongyuan in a few days, reported Ju Chun truthfully. I'll remember your contributions. Since this prince is here, why don't you demonstrate it for this prince and broaden this prince's horizons? As Yi Junqing spoke, he walked towards the heaven-piercing pillar. His fingers stroked the metal tube that glowed with green light as his lips curved into a cold smile. All right, Ju Chun immediately agreed and walked to one end of the heaven-piercing pillar. He placed the black ball inside, then went to light a match. There was another deafening explosion. Ju Chun picked his ears, then turned around to see that Ice Soul and Yi Junqing were already fighting. Ice Soul, what are you doing? Zhu Chen immediately panicked. He didn't doubt Ice Soul's loyalty to Ji Province, but the scene in front of him was too hard to accept. Zhu Chen, he's fake. Aimed the heaven-piercing pillar at him. Ice Soul had already been hit twice by Yi Junqing's palm and coughed up blood. How do you know that this prince is fake? Yi Junqing's voice was as cold as ice and his eyes were filled with a biting chill. He, thousand-faced, had attacked twice, but this person had seen through both times. This was truly infuriating. The smell of glue on your body has already made this noble one choke. Ice Soul held his chest with one hand as he stumbled back a few steps. That's impossible. This noble one is using the most recently developed odorless glue. The moment he said this, Zhu Chen immediately moved the heaven-piercing pillar. The fake Yi Junqing was instantly enraged. He had fallen into a trap. Ice Soul, you dare to trick me? Yi Junqing's expression changed, and a rain of hidden weapons shot out from his sleeves. Ice Soul had already suffered internal injuries and knew that she wouldn't be able to dodge the fast hidden weapons, so she closed her eyes and looked towards Zhu Chen to tell him to hurry and leave. In the nick of time, Yin Shui and the others descended from the sky in front of Ice Soul and blocked all the hidden weapons for her. Fuck. You sure came fast. Mountains and rivers will meet again. Ice Soul, this noble one will come looking for you again for betraying the Iron Blood Ice Group. The person pretending to be Yi Junqing practically disappeared from Phoenix Mountain in the blink of an eye. Ice Soul, are you all right? When Zhu Chen saw that Ice Soul was coughing up blood, he immediately walked over to help her up. Then he took out a pill and handed it to her. Are you sure this isn't filled with saltpeter? Ice Soul looked towards Zhu Chen suspiciously, but Zhu Chen took out another pill and swallowed it right in front of Ice Soul. It was only later that Ice Soul found out that these were all life-saving medicines. They were all top-quality medicines that Zhu Chen had personally refined. The only reason he carried them around was because he was afraid of making mistakes in his experiments. In Zhu Chen's words, researching these things was a life-threatening task. At this time, Yao Moen and Yi Junqing had also arrived at Phoenix Mountain. Master, that person just now pretended to be Prince again and almost injured Ice Soul. Yin Shui walked over to Yao Moen's side and reported respectfully. Mingyu hurriedly ran over to Zhu Chen and asked about his well-being. Ice Soul, are you all right? Yi Junqing quickly walked over to Ice Soul and personally helped her up. Prince? Zhu Chen looked towards Yi Junqing in confusion with lingering fear. Are you suspecting this prince? Yi Junqing saw the doubt in Zhu Chen's eyes and immediately got angry. Are you stupid? If I'm not me, then who am I? This prince thinks that you're itching for a beating. Yi Junqing roared fiercely, but Zhu Chen only smiled in response. Don't worry, it's Prince. Zhu Chen's words caused everyone to collapse. Hurry and bring Ice Soul back to the residence and have Li Juan treat him well. When Yao Moen saw how heavily injured Ice Soul was, she swallowed all the questions she was about to ask. Chapter 368. Don't be anxious. Ice Spirit has something to say. That person just now was none other than the Iron Blood Army's third vice captain, Thousand Faces. Ice Spirit felt that the matter was urgent and could not be delayed. Thousand Face? Why is it called this name? It's very ordinary, isn't it? Binlei Ruo opened his mouth and was met with murderous gazes. Continue. Binlei smiled apologetically. The so-called Thousand Faces is actually a description of his peerless disguise skills. Normal disguise skills have many flaws, and the disguise process is very complicated. It would take at least an hour, and if it's a little more meticulous, it would take at least 2 hours. However, if a Thousand Faces wants to disguise himself as someone, he only needs half the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, or even less. His technique is extremely precise, and it's very difficult for others to discover him. If Ice Soul hadn't seen that he was going to attack Zhu Chen, she wouldn't have been able to see through him. Ice Soul was deeply worried. If that's the case, then that thousand-faced assassin is really dangerous. He can disguise himself as any one of us and then defeat us one by one? You also felt that this matter was very troublesome. That's terrible. If we can't identify it, it'll be impossible to guard against it. Tingyu was also anxious as she looked towards Yao Moen worriedly. At least now we can be sure that we are the real deal. Yao Moen's expression was grave as her beautiful eyes swept over everyone. After thinking for a moment, she took out a string of blue glass balls from her sleeve. Tingyu, distribute the glazed balls to everyone. From now on, whenever we see each other, we have to show the glazed ball first. If anyone can't take it out, do you know what to do? Yao Moen raised her brows. Everyone responded in unison. Gang up on them until they die. When Zhu Chun heard this, he immediately gripped the glazed ball tightly, as if he was afraid of losing it. Master, this isn't a long-term solution, right? Inshui was still worried. Let's return to the guest house to treat Ice Soul for now. Inshui, you'll personally test Li Juan. Ask him why this consort chose him out of all the imperial physicians. As Yao Moen spoke, she whispered the answer into Inshui's ear. When they returned to the guest house, Inshui first brought the Ice Soul to Li Juan's temporary infirmary. When Inshui asked the question that Yao Moen had asked, Li Juan simply thought that Inshui was just messing with him and casually replied that it was because he was a person of virtue and prestige. Inshui immediately slapped him. Aya, stop fighting. What's going on? Li Juan covered his head with his hands, his tone mournful. The answer is wrong. Inshui stared at Li Juan warily. Although she felt that Li Juan was the real person, no one could guarantee that he wasn't just pretending to be pitiful. Of virtue and prestige. Stop fighting. Because I'm handsome. I'm handsome. Okay. Li Juan cried. Didn't he check the almanac before going out today? Inshui has offended you. Please forgive me, Imperial Physician Li. Her ladyship has instructed Imperial Physician Li to treat the Ice Soul crystal properly. Hearing Li Juan's answer, Inshui dispelled her doubts. Poor Li Juan. He had been beaten for no reason. After Li Juan wrote a prescription for the Ice Soul herb, Inshui gave Li Juan a glass ball and told him the truth. Li Juan was wrongly accused. He really wanted to question Inshui. Couldn't you have said so earlier? Due to the thousand-faced assassin's sudden appearance, Zhu Chun and Ming Yu had been arranged to stay at the guest house. Thus, after Inshui brought the Ice Soul herb back, the two of them were in charge of taking care of the Ice Soul herb's safety. For the sake of safety, Zhu Chun even set up an ambush in the Ice Soul herb's room to prevent the thousand-faced assassin from launching a sneak attack. After Inshui reported the entire situation to Yao Moen had a flash of inspiration and came up with a countermeasure. Thus, at dinner time, everyone gathered in Yao Moen's room. Moen has thought about it. Even with the keepsake, there's no guarantee that the thousand-faced assassin won't take advantage of it. While Yao Moen was speaking, Tingyu had already retrieved all the glass balls that had been distributed at Phoenix Mountain. Li Juan still has one. Don't forget. Yao Moen rarely saw Yao Moen this stingy, but when he thought about it, there really wasn't any reason for her to be generous since one was worth 1,000 warhorses. Master, if there's no keepsake, how are we supposed to tell if it's real or fake? Bin Lei looked towards Yao Moen suspiciously. Bin Lei, this consort wants to ask you. When you first came to Mengyuan, did you enter Melancholic Spring Courtyard? Yao Moen's question was too direct, so Bin Lei immediately shook his head. Do you guys believe me? Yao Moen lifted her brows and looked towards everyone. Everyone shook their heads, then they saw Feng Lin shout at Bin Lei. He's fake. Gang up on him. After saying this, Feng Yulei Dian got up and started beating Bin Lei up. Stop beating him. Aya, I went there, but I just drank. I didn't do anything else. If you guys don't believe me, you can ask Uncle Tian. Bin Lei complained endlessly. Uncle Tian is already so old. Yet you actually brought Uncle Tian to that kind of place. You're truly inhumane. Everyone stopped beating him, and Feng Lin looked at him with extreme disdain. He was the one who brought me there, all right? Bin Lei was speechless. Master, you're saying that if we have any suspicions, we can use this sort of interrogation method to determine if he's real or fake? Inshue looked towards Yao Moen in realization. We've all seen thousand-faced assassin's appearance-changing technique. It's practically all-pervasive, and his martial arts aren't weak. There's no better way to guard against him, so this can be considered an expedient measure. Yao Moen's gaze gradually darkened. She also knew that this method could only treat the symptoms and not the root cause. Master, do you like Prince? Binlei looked towards Yao Moen with a vulgar expression as he asked this resentfully. When Binlei said this, everyone's gazes instantly fell on Yao Moen. Yi Juanqing's heart tightened. At this moment, he suddenly felt that Binlei was exceptionally pleasing to the eye. Unfortunately, Binlei had forgotten what kind of person Yao Moen was. Would she be forced into a corner by him? Feng Lin, push a certain tactless fellow out for this consort to give him a good beating. If he's still able to get out of bed tomorrow morning, this consort will only hold you accountable. Yao Moen instructed lightly. Feng Lin naturally understood which tactless fellow it was and immediately charged towards Binlei. Master, you can't be like this. Then if you can't answer, then it's fake. What are you guys just standing there for? Binlei looked towards everyone pleadingly, but all he got in return were looks of schadenfreude. Please, Binlei. Feng Lin rubbed his palms together, a malicious smile gradually lifting the corners of his lips. Why? Master, Binlei refuses to accept this. Binlei struggled on his deathbed. Refuse to accept? Then beat him until he accepts. He doesn't need to get out of bed the day after tomorrow. Yao Moen waved her hand. Binlei saw that the situation wasn't good and was just about to run when Feng Lin sealed his acupuncture points. Next to Yao Moen, Inshue couldn't help but shake her head. Binlei was truly tactless to actually ask why. Was it because the other was the master? How stupid. Once everyone left, Yi Juanqing chose to stay behind. Prince, is something the matter? Yao Moen saw that Yi Juanqing had no intention of getting up, so she asked in confusion. This prince feels that if that thousand-faced assassin wanted to kill this prince, he could have just come to find this prince, but he went to see you first. Yi Juanqing's expression was grave. Moen has already thought about this. He's probably probing Moen. Yao Moen sighed lightly, then slowly sat down. At the side, Tingyu poured a cup of tea for Yi Juanqing, then quietly retreated. Now that you're no longer a fool, this matter has probably already reached Yi Hongyi's ears. So this prince feels that there's no need for you to keep pretending. How about this prince just announce your matter to the world? This had always been Yi Juanqing's greatest wish. He felt guilty for letting Yao Moen keep pretending to be a fool. Chapter 369. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Yi Hongyi wouldn't believe it. Also, how are you going to announce it to the world? The awkwardness of Moen's identity is a small matter, but if it shakes the morale of the army, then the gains won't make up for the losses. Yao Moen felt that she needed to consider this matter thoroughly. How could it shake the morale of the army? You're Ma Xin's younger sister, so you have a reason for everything you do, said Yi Juanqing impatiently. So Prince wants to announce to the world what Yi Hongyi did to eldest sister? Yao Moen's gaze gradually turned cold as she spoke in a low voice. This prince does indeed have this intention. Yi Juanqing didn't deny it. Has Prince thought about the consequences of this? Prince, don't forget that when you raised the flag in Mongyuan, the banner was that Yi Hongyi was cruel, heartless, muddle-headed, and tyrannical. Yao Moen was getting a bit angry. Ma Xin's death proves this point. What's wrong with that? Yi Juanqing didn't think much of it. Everyone knows of your highness' feelings for eldest sister. If your highness reveals this matter at this time, not to mention the fact that we don't have any concrete evidence, even if we do, everyone will think that your highness is rebelling for a woman. At that time, what will your highness do? Yao Moen felt that no matter how she tried to explain, Yi Juanqing would still be single-minded and it would be hard to change his mind. This prince rebelled for Ma Xin. This is the truth. Yi Juanqing frowned as he spoke firmly. Yao Moen, this prince doesn't want you to pretend to be stupid in front of everyone. Do you understand? Yi Junqing couldn't say these words no matter what. Prince is willing to rebel against the imperial court for a woman. But the soldiers that fought with you know who Yao Maxin is. What reason do they have to drag their entire family into danger with Prince? Now that things have gotten to this point, can Prince not be so narrow-minded? You have to be worthy of Yao Maxin, but you have to be worthy of those soldiers that have placed their lives in your hands. They don't owe you anything. Yao Moen felt that only shouting could express her thoughts. In any case, this prince won't let Maxin die without knowing why. This meant that when Yao Moen flipped out, Yi Junqing would naturally weaken. After being together for so long, Yi Junqing had already developed this habit. When did Moen say that she was going to let eldest sister suffer injustice? As long as Prince obtains the country, then at that time, you can clear eldest sister's grievances. That's only natural. The more Yao Moen shouted, the more excited she became. Her beautiful eyes were as wide as copper bells. Why are your eyes so wide? Do you want to eat me? Yi Junqing reached out to take it. He was afraid that Yao Moen's eyes would fall out. Prince better disappear from Moen's sight immediately. Otherwise, there's nothing Moen can't do. Stop arguing. Yao Moen harumphed, but her voice didn't lower in the slightest. This prince wasn't arguing. Yi Junqing said innocently. Fenglin, if that bastard makes any more noise, just beat him to death. Outside the door, Bin Lei, who had been wailing incessantly, finally shut his mouth. The next day, under Yao Moen's suggestion, everyone asked questions instead of nodding at each other. Bin Lei, when are you going to pay me back the 30 taels of silver you owe me? When Tingyu walked out of the room with a basin of water, she coincidentally ran into Bin Lei. Do I owe you money? When? Bin Lei's face was blank. Guards. 1,000 faces sneak attack. Tingyu didn't even look at Bin Lei as she shouted at the top of her lungs. Shoo. Return it. I'll return it tomorrow. Bin Lei felt that these days were worse than death. Also, Nyang was beaten up by Fenglin to the point that you can't get off the bed. If Nyang sees you swaggering around like this, won't you implicate Fenglin and cause him to be punished by Nyang? Tingyu saw that Bin Lei's face was flushed red and reminded him with good intentions. I know. It's not like I have a servant girl to serve me, so I have to go to the kitchen to make food, right? Said Bin Lei resentfully. Guards. 1,000 faces. Shoo. Big sister. What are you doing? Bin Lei cried and immediately covered Tingyu's mouth. Tingyu raised her brows and pointed at Bin Lei's hand. Is servant girl something you can call? Call me older sister Tingyu. Tingyu's expression was extremely sharp. I didn't call you a servant girl. Bin Lei cried. Guards, older sister Tingyu. Walk slowly. Walk slowly and watch the road carefully. Older sister Tingyu, goodbye. Don't see older sister Tingyu again. Bin Lei had a stomach full of anger, so he just went back to his room and covered his head to sleep. When Tingyu was about to go to Yao Moen's room after fetching water, she happened to see Mingyu walking over. Fetching water? Mingyu's face was like a spring breeze as she smiled faintly. That's right. Nyang should be up at this time. Oh right. How's the ice soul? Asked Tingyu casually. It's all right. Mingyu didn't say much and walked around Tingyu to the rear courtyard. Just as Mingyu walked to the arched door, Tingyu suddenly turned around. Mingyu, Nyang said that the lotus seed soup you made last night was especially delicious. Make another bowl for Nyang when you're free. Tingyu's hand that was holding the basin of water gradually tightened as she looked towards Mingyu without blinking. Got it. Mingyu replied casually and walked into the rear courtyard. My God. Seeing Mingyu walk into the rear courtyard, Tingyu swallowed hard and cold sweat dripped down her forehead. She then smashed the basin of water onto the ground and shouted, Not good. 1,000 faces is coming to ambush us. Hurry and gang up on them. Tingyu knew that Yin Shui and Wind and Rain Lightning were both hidden guards. As long as she shouted, they would definitely hear her. However, she didn't expect that the first person to appear in front of her would actually be Mingyu. How did you know that I'm 1,000 faces? A woman's body and a man's voice. This scene was really strange. Tingyu was dumbfounded. You're courting death. The low voice was filled with cold killing intent. Thousand Faces suddenly attacked. Fortunately, Inshui appeared in time and used the Phoenix Scarlet chains to wrap around Tingyu and pull her back. At this time, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning had already surrounded them. It was another evenly matched battle. After about 20 or so moves, Juchan suddenly appeared. "Get out of the way." With a whoosh, Inshui and the others retreated several meters. Following that, there was a loud explosion. When the smoke dissipated and everyone gathered around, all they saw was a face that was no different from Mingyu's. It was still stained with blood. "Mingyu, my wife." Juchen roared as he recalled the scene before him. Everyone immediately rolled their eyes at him. Inshui had followed the trail of blood the entire way, but after finding nothing, she turned back. According to Isol, since Thousand Faces was injured, he wouldn't appear for a while. Appearance-changing technique had extremely strict requirements and didn't allow the slightest injury to the body. Isol estimated that Thousand Faces would need to recuperate for at least half a year due to the power of Ju Qin's arrow explosion rat. Isol's words were trustworthy, so everyone temporarily calmed down. Right at this time, Yi Junqing received a secret letter from Bactria's Di Feng. "I didn't expect Di Feng to be in such a sorry state. It was Moen who harmed him." Yao Moen felt a bit guilty as she looked at the secret letter in her hands. "You harmed him? Why?" This prince remembers now. Back then, Di Feng had asked this prince if I was the one who threw him into Harmony Palace. "It was you, right?" "Yao Moen, was it you?" Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen in shock. If it wasn't for Moen, the one suffering in Bactria right now would be Prince. Yao Moen lifted her brows, then handed the secret letter to Inshui. "You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."